Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Chuck Jones Gallery San Diego Comic-Con 2022 rollout with the legendary, the infamous. We could only book the biggest for the biggest night, and it doesn't get any bigger than this. So without further ado, and skipping all the nonsense that I usually say in the beginning, let's just go straight ahead to the ultimate, Mr. Fabio Napoleoni. Welcome, buddy.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. I have to, before we start this event, I have to thank the wonderful people whose home I am in, and that would be Robert and Cheryl Amber. I am in Maine. My in-laws' 50th anniversary is tomorrow, and the Wi-Fi and the service is a little wonky. And fortunately for me, one of my closest friends, their son, Dan, and his beautiful wife, Erica, are here. And he happened to call me maybe 10 minutes prior to, I think it was like 7, something like that here, Eastern. So, and the call kept dropping out, and he's a tech guy, and he is like, dude, this is not good. So he was willing to drive 20 minutes to me to give me a boost, or his parents offered me their home to come and do the show here. They're also collectors. I've known them, man, decades. So here I am. I'm in their little like their den sort of, and it worked out because if it hadn't, they'd be upset people. So I want to before we start, thank them for their generosity and just for being awesome people all around.
Yeah, absolutely. And
yeah,
talk about calling an audible. That's the way to do it.
Yeah.
You get a signal? No. I've done a show out of the back of my van in a Holiday Inn parking lot. No joke. I mean, it is a joke, but I actually did it. So, so as we start tonight,
yes,
you know, it's kind of customary to do, you know, whatever we're kind of popping the cork on. So we're going to start with you, sir. What are you?
Yes.
What frivolities do you have this evening?
So, again, typically before we do a show, when I was traveling with my friend Dan or my wife, or even now my son, who's able to drink, we always have a cocktail prior to the show. This time, since I was in a hurry and I came here, I didn't have the opportunity. But once again, I have awesome people that I know and I'm friends with, and Erica, Dan's wife, made me this magical drink. Oh, I just noticed it has a little tornado on the back of it. That's amazing. Anyway, so but it's I believe there's vodka in here, and some other stuff, and it's delicious. So that's all that matters. I don't know 100% what's in there. I know there's vodka in here, and that's just making me happy.
So, you know, because it's you, and you know, we do these things. I was like, I can't have a normal glass. I mean, usually I'm doing like the whatever I had in the studio, and now that I don't have that giant studio and now it's in my house down in a completely different state, I was thrift store shopping and saw this thing, and I was like, oh, this totally says Fabio show. So for $2.50, because it was half off, I was able to get this 1/4-inch glass, non-margarita glass margarita. And buddy, this is for you. So notice it says beer pong champion. Whatever, I don't care. You know, somebody celebrated with it. I washed it out, and in here is it's so heavy. The Rock's got a tequila. Who knew? So I've got the Rock tequila. I've got some organic margarita mix, some lime juice. Maria, you should be proud, and some blue curacao and some Sprite. So
excellent. Excellent. That's like a bathtub for Frenchies.
It is a. I mean, come on.
Yes.
And I even went to like text you the picture, but it wasn't like I had a really bad signal. And my wife's like, "Are you gonna show them now? Why wouldn't you wait?" I'm like, "Why would I wait? Do you even know me?" And it wouldn't send. So I deleted it, and it turns out better that it's a better surprise to say this. You're the champion. Okay, I'm having this for you. So.
Awesome. I appreciate it. That is amazing. That you could almost bob for limes in that thing.
I could climb in this thing. I could climb in. I could roll myself around.
Do some laps in it.
Yeah, I could exercise. All right. So now that we've got that out of the way,
cool.
Of course, Chuck Jones Gallery, San Diego Comic-Con. I love this time every single year. And we have a special kind of like mix this year in this live and virtual event. So you get the benefit of having a live audience there at this wickedly cool pop-up gallery that the Chuck Jones folks have in the Gas Lamp. And if you're there live, you will be able to pipe in. And, you know, if you want to ask Fabio a question, you know, as we're rolling through some stuff, we've got a setup there. We can see the audience, which is kind of fun. And then for our virtual audience, as I'm in Florida and Fabio's in Maine and Craig's in Orange County and the galleries in San Diego, we're all over the place. If you're watching virtual with us and you've got a question, you want to pipe some in comments, please go ahead and put that in the chat in Zoom. We can see those things, and we'll start calling that out as we go along. So without further ado, we get into Comic-Con stuff, right? What? Superheroes and everything else. And you've created some pretty killer pieces over the years, right? And, you know, all kinds of stuff. Marcenivo with Captain America, which I am going to end up getting tattooed on myself. And some other really wicked concepts. When it came to this show, and, I mean, we've got a whole like plethora of content to like do stuff. What was speaking to you, especially in your pen and inks, when you were like, oh, I gotta do this?
Well, you know, the sad part is that as you know, time is our worst enemy, especially trying to create. If there was a law that could be made where now days are 36 hours long opposed to 26, I think we as artists would be the happiest people on the planet. Everybody else who works, it would be an 8 to 12 hour job now. So wouldn't like it. But for me, it's just I had a list already made, and then Scott every year, which is really, really cool, because he'll send me like, hey, these are the things that are trending. These are the characters that, see if you can squeeze these guys in with your work. And so I have Scott's list, which usually is about 8 to 10 suggestions. And then I'll have my own, which could be, I think it's like 22 or 23 this year. And as I start creating, I go down the line, and just if it pops in my noggin, then I'll just start creating it. And you know, I'm also like a huge pop culture guy, so then shows that are popular on Netflix that I can see my characters going to, that the classic stuff that we'll show in a little bit. Those things I enjoy this time of year, given this opportunity by the gallery and Scott and this whole entire team, that it's you know, I say it every year, it's a massive feather in my cap. I enjoy it more than anything, because everybody always asks me, how did you get to this point where this is what you're doing? And it's just having a good relationship with the gallery and the staff and Greg and everybody that just gives me that in itself influences me to create, you know, really killer art. So
is Craig, like, I see Craig's like hold on screen, so we're gonna call him out and be like, Craig, you still there? Still there, Craig? And chat's not working. All right, so we'll see if we can get something back up and submit in the Q&A maybe instead of the chat. So if Craig comes back on, which maybe he's taking a break for a second, I wanted to ask him a couple of questions in regards to you also. Oh, live TV. So you had like some concepts that you were just rolling. You had mentioned like you're watching Netflix stuff and you know, that kind of thing. Well, it's kind of like one of the biggest things that's happened to Netflix. There's Stranger Things, and then there's Squid Game. So you just when it hits you, it hits you.
Exactly. And it's one of those things that I saw it, and I instantly, it's one of those shows that I watched at 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm painting and I see this thing and I'm like, oh, it's a Korean show. Oh, let's see if I can get it, you know, and see if there's a sub in English, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, excellent. So I put it on, and I caught myself just sitting there watching the show, not creating anything. So I'm like, this is a bad show. These are the shows that artists should not be watching.
Yes.
But I love the show so much. The concept behind it, everything is amazing. So that was one of the first things I wanted to do, because I could see people at Comic-Con, which is sad that I'm not there because I'm wondering if there are pink, characters with the mask and the triangle and the circle and the square, and then you have all these the guys fighting for the money in their little Adidas style, you know what I mean, the suits. And then I started thinking about it, and it worked out. The reason this piece worked out for me was because
hold that back up again.
Yeah, hold it up again.
Yeah. All right. Now talk.
Okay. So the the reason I have a character that's pink, and
wait,
it's
hold on. No. Yeah. All right. Now.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Sorry.
This character in Mr. Bunny Boo's Hound is pink. And so automatically I thought, I'm like, okay, I can draw that character, have these ears pop out of the top, and it would be fitting to this. And then the other character, I believe his number was it 456? I'm sure somebody will correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's 456 or 457. And I thought, oh, this is perfect because number 5 is significant to me and what I do. I mean, I have it tattooed on my arm right there because that's the amount of major heart surgeries my daughter has had. So that number was perfect that it's in the middle. So I was able to, I just saw how this would fit together and just worked. I think this is probably a pen and ink that's this, and this is probably one that will get painted because I could see it. I think it would look amazing, in the color of Bunny Boo's Hound, and then with the green and Marcenivo. I just think it would be a fantastic piece to actually be made into a painting.
So we get into which it's a very interesting topic too. So like when we're doing things, it's like how late are you working? Like when were we texting? 11. Now that I'm on your time zone, right?
Yeah. And
it's like 11:30. I'm like, yeah. What are you doing?
Yeah.
This. What are you doing? Yeah, that. And text them. So we're doing things, and we had this discussion at your shindig that I finally got to go to something in person for because I'm down here.
With that being said, remember the gentleman who was wearing the Bush?
Yes.
That's whose home I'm in. That's his parents.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And I think his name is Dan, right?
Yes, exactly,
yeah,
Dan.
I called the wrong guy Dan, and I didn't know that. And
well, there were like 3 Dans there, so.
I'm just trying to get all the names right. So, and I'm terrible with names. So we get into the whole thing, and we're discussing shows. I'm like, did you watch? I haven't watched Stranger Things and whatever. I'm like, all right, I've watched, the 4th season, and we're like, I can't do that until.
Yeah.
I'm like, because I'd like to watch The Boys, and season the rest of season 2 and season, but I can't. Like, there's certain things I can't do because I need to concentrate. So, that being said, we're pounding the pavement at all hours of the day and the night, right? But you got to have something on. It can't be quiet, right? So maybe
exactly.
Sometimes it's music, sometimes it's a movie. I don't know about you. I watched Star Wars: The Original Trilogy in repeat. And Indiana Jones, right? And I can have those on all day. No joke. I probably had them on about 7 times so far this week. The whole 5-film thing.
Wow.
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yep.
And I don't do Temple of Doom. Sorry, it's not a thing. Kate Capshaw to me should have died in the film. She's just annoying. I can't do it. Isn't that Spielberg's wife? Fine. I'm sure she's a great and lovely person. I can't take the character. All right. The elephant needs to throw her off. So I do Raiders of the Lost Ark, and I do the Holy Grail, right? And I had to. It was an impulse buy on Amazon this week. I had to do it, so I can have that on all day long in the trilogy. And then I know that if I get to the end of that cycle, I've probably been going for about 14 hours.
Yeah.
And maybe I need to take a break.
Yeah.
So what do you have on? When you just need because the movie's playing, it's all going, you understand it, but what do you have on?
Yeah. So funny you mentioned Raiders of the Lost Ark because I don't know if it was on HBO or one of them, but they had all of them on one day.
Yep.
And it's one of the days where we're supposed to be, because we move too, so we're trying to unpack things and moving things and the dogs and this and that and irrigation junk and that's not working. But for some reason, none of us really left the main part of my house because all those movies are playing.
Yep.
And so like the Crystal Skull is everybody's probably least favorite. I know that's horrible because some people do like it. But it's I can relate to that part. When I'm painting or drawing or focusing, like I had to do sketches for the third children's book, I sat there and I went to Amazon. I found one with Chris Pratt from Galaxy. So I'm like, oh, I love this guy. Let me put this on. But it was it's about a veteran. So I watched it, and that was, I think, 10 episodes, an hour each, and I watched the entire thing in one day. But at the end of it, I was like, holy crap, I pretty much have finished every sketch I needed to do for this book, for the exception of 2. So then I called it a night at 2:00 in the morning. And then I was like back up at 6 to finish the other 2 because I needed to. So I understand. I watch things like that. I'll put John Hughes movies on, 16 Candles and what's the other one? Breakfast Club. And then I'll go to like Johnny Be Good and just pickup artists. I'll go one to another, to another, to another. And then when my checklist is gone, I've done the same thing. It's 12, 14 hours later. And my wife would say, did you eat anything today? What did you have? And I'm like, yeah, I've had 14 pots of coffee. I'm really good. I'm all set to go. I'm pretty fine. I'm okay. And
Cheetos with that. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm saying that because I know she's watching. So, but that's what she does. She'll come in. She's like, did you eat anything today? I'm like, did you eat anything today? So, but it's, I wouldn't trade it for anything, man. It's a labor of love. And some days you feel motivated and some days you don't. And the best part about what we do for a living is that, we can get up and go outside and dip our feet in the pool or go for a walk or a drive, and no one's going to go, you fired. So.
Yes. So speaking of which, like I've got a pool now, which is awesome. So I can relate now to you people in the pool, and I'll be able to relate to it 12 months out of the year. Not like back up north where it's maybe about 2 months out of the year.
Well, you say that now. You live here another 5 or 6 years, and come January, you're going to be like, oh, no, this pool's 68 degrees. I'm not diving in there. That's what will happen. You'd be like, 68, that's a lake in Maine.
Yeah.
People jump in there all the time. It'll happen.
It's like
my wife doesn't do it. She doesn't go in there until it's boiling.
Yeah, like I need it bath temperature.
Yeah.
Like it's not a jacuzzi, it's a pool. Like let's make it a giant jacuzzi. Well, go ahead.
I think I left the house one day at around noontime and came back around 4 or 5, and she was still in there in the little jacuzzi hot tub thing. I'm like, are you all right? You're gonna boil yourself. No, she had her glass of wine and she's happy. So
right. Like do you look like a prune slightly, or are we still right? Yeah, like how
No,
long?
she's really good because she gets in there and then she rolls into the pool, swims, goes back in, rolls into the pool. It's a thing she has, a little circle of life there.
I haven't gotten that down yet. I'm more into just all in, and then let's see how long we can last. So I think you brought up like putting the work in. Mm-hmm. And there's a thing, and sometimes you get this a little bit, and people that, and I find it more with like skeptics. It's not the collectors, it's not the fans, it's not really anything like that. They understand into it. It's more of the people, and I look at this with people whose kids are want to get into art, and then they'll ask you those questions, and I'm sure you get those questions, and so they'll go in and be like, oh, like you're gonna like draw something or what, it's kind of a put off thing, like how much work does that really take? I mean, what are you really doing? And you're like, dude, and they may do like an 8 or 9 hour day. We're pulling 14s and 16s when we have to and putting the work in. What reaction have you gotten sometimes that it was totally left field? Have you ever gotten a reaction that was totally left field to something innocent? It was probably an innocent comment, and you were like, oh.
Well, it's the only. I've been so fortunate, man, that I've some of my lines and people stand around for a long period of time, and I mean I don't mean an hour or two. I mean like 4, 6 hours, and they're tired, but they don't want to leave. And then I see that. So to me, that I feel bad. But when they come to the table and they get that 5 or 10 minutes, everything disappears. The 5 hours they spent on the floor just vanishes because they got their personal time with me. But the one that always comes to mind, mind you, I've been at this for 14 years. I've been doing shows and galleries for going on 14. So the only one time was here, not here, but in Orlando. And the line was long, and I had this lady that came, and she was with her daughter and her husband. And you can see a person's face and know that they were unhappy because it's been so long, but now they're happy to see you. This lady was not happy and now angry as the F word in front of me. And she just kind of threw the artwork in front of me. And I was like, hi, how are you? And she's like, we've been standing in line for an hour and a half. And I was like, I'm sorry, that's just the way it is. These are shows, it's Disney, and I'm doing my regular, my regular stuff. And she's like, why? And I said, well, because everybody has art, and I sign it and we have a conversation. Some of these people are personal friends and collectors. And then she's like, but why? Why does it take so long? And I said, well, why did you buy? And I said, why did you buy this piece of art? And she said, because it just kind of struck me. It's kind of cool. I like this. She bought the wish list. I like this saying here that, cancer can be cured by chicken soup. And I said, well, there are people here, there are people here in this line that can relate to every one of these. And there's an emotional attachment. So I told her that's why they wait. And then she's like, okay. And then so I signed it, and her daughter, I was trying to give her daughter like all the little freebies, the stickers and stuff like that. And she kind of was pushed off by that. And I said, no, these are hers. Or she like kind of stopped her daughter from grabbing the artwork. And I said, no, these are yours. The pin is yours. Everything is yours. Just take that. That's for you. And, but she still was complaining about the amount of time, the time that she had waited in line. And I said, and I finally, I was just like, well, clearly you're not understanding, why these people stand here. I understand that you're upset, but this is what I'm going to do. So then I called the manager over from the Pop Gallery, and I told her to refund her all her money. And then she left with the artwork and got her money back. And then that was it. That was the way I dealt with that situation. But that's the only time it's ever happened. I mean, it's like, again, I'm fortunate 14 years that someone just didn't, and I thought, I'm like, you didn't talk to people in line? That's what happens at these things. Everybody talks and makes friends and understands. But I think she was just upset from the get-go that she had to wait in line, because I think sometimes people don't understand that. You wait in line for something that you enjoy and that you like, and hopefully at the end of it you end up with something that's that you're going to remember and take that memory with you. But she was upset, and everybody was like, I can't believe the part that I missed is that I left out was that she made me so upset. I got up from the table and walked around the corner to take a breather. And then I took like three deep breaths, and the consultant came over, and I said, that lady just made me really mad. And then I went back, and then I dealt with it in a nice, calm manner, and then they refunded her money, and she went on her way. So it happens.
It happens, but yeah, I would have had to take the two and be like, we'll be back in a minute. Hold on, let's say, yes, son. I know you, but you know what? Daddy's on a show right now with Mr. Fabio. So I'll hit you in 1 minute. Go grab mama. All right. You know how it goes. I'm like,
exactly. It wouldn't be us if one of them didn't come in, peek around the corner, or the dog.
It doesn't matter if it's the studio, if it's back up in Illinois, if it's here.
Yeah.
It's. Oh, I know. Yep. So yeah, they had. Yeah, it's fine. So, I got to meet you for the first time in person this last February.
Mm-hmm.
And what a hilarious joy that was. And you were kind enough to let me climb on your back. So, and give you a big old bear hug. And I warned you ahead of time. I'm like, I'm just going to let you know. This is going to happen. right? If we need security there or something and it lasts a little longer than it should, that's fine. You know, you can pry me off. So I wanted to say though that like waiting in line and getting to talk to people, and Rob put this in the comments too, talking with everybody else and everybody else
Exactly.
thing and experiences and what they like, what they don't. And you know, like there's what I love about this is there's a connection to this. And this is one of the reasons, one of the reasons that I have such a great respect and admiration for you, because you know, I ended up I got, you can't see it on here, but I've got stuff of yours all over the place. When you walk in my front door, my studio is just off to the right, and it's the first piece that you see when you walk in, which was the piece you did in the airplane, with the little airplane with the 72.
Oh yeah,
yeah. And I was out in Laguna, and I got to visit your gallery for the first time, and that piece, and I'm like, it's that piece. And then I heard the story behind it, and I'm like, just charge the card, right? You can ship it, right? Because I can't take this on the plane. So and what I love about these things is there's always a story and a connection and something, you know. In that first show that we did, you know, I laugh with people, and I'm like, we did the speed dating thing for 20 minutes, and then we did a 2-hour show, and knew nothing about each other, and specifically me not knowing like a ton about you, and it just like sometimes things just click. So I find in, you know, the pieces that you do, like, and which is what I like about getting into the shows and standing, there's always something and a connect. And what did you like about that piece? I'm like, oh, I totally understand that. You know, I connected with this, the F-bombs, the love bombs, the whole thing, you know. And it's such a wonderful, not even an icebreaker, it's just such a wonderful experience. So when you're creating stuff, like you put more meaning into your pieces and storylines, which, you know, just I think is what gravitates people to your stuff, right? Not only does it look fantastic and your, you know, your style is fantastic, but your stories, man, it always starts with a story. So I wanted to ask, because we do have some new pieces for coming, a couple of stories behind what we have going. So I'm going to let you pick which one you wanted to start with.
Oh boy. I will go with this one, because it's the same image, but there's two. So this is I forget that these characters were part of the whole. I think Chuck directed it, or of the couple of the shorts, and but these Birdie and Hubie, I think these guys. I saw the Scott. I think they were like the third on the list, and Claude the cat, and I was like, yes, I would love that. And the first thing that came to mind, as I Google, and I saw these two. These poses are from two different cartoons. And I was like, okay, I got to draw these guys. So I draw them, and I thought, how am I going to incorporate Marcenivo in here, where it's just not like, I didn't want it to be, you know, I've done the full scenes and the full characters, and I wanted this to be more of like a more intimate type thing where he's offering them something. And then of course, a little square, classic little square cheese with the holes, a little Swiss or whatever. And I did this piece. And this is my standard size for pen and ink, which is a 7x11. I don't make them any bigger just because I've been doing it the same way for about 20 years when I cut the paper down. So this is a standard Napoleoni size pen and ink. So the cat is not in here. When I decided to, you know what, I'm going to paint this, because I can't wait to paint these guys, just because the colors are going through my mind. And then I started painting it and realized that Marcenivo in this image is very close to Marcenivo and Gentlemen, Let's Give This a Try, where you have Sam and he's choking, exactly, he's choking Ralph. And Marcenivo is in the middle of them, being the peacemaker, like, hey, let's give this little love. Let's give love a shot. I noticed that they're the same. And I was like, oh, man, now I can't paint this because it's the same. It's the same. He's looking in the same direction. So as I were in the part of tearing my studio down to bring it to our new house, and I drew it out and I realized that, and I was like, I think it's got to be Dragon Boy now. And then just putting Dragon Boy into the piece changed the entire dynamic of what I was thinking I was going to paint the background, because, you know, Marcenivo is sort of a beige color where Dragon Boy is green. And so it changed the whole, what I had in mind of creating this piece. It changed it completely. And I think, you know, there are good mistakes that you catch on and you're like, oh, I can't believe I did that. But this is one that I was like thankful I made, because if Marcenivo had been facing the other way or a different position, this piece wouldn't have been created. So I fortunate that I caught on to the fact that this was already done. Because if I would have painted this one first and then done the Sam and Ralph piece, who knows how that one would have turned out. So it's those are the like little is it happy little mistakes or whatever it is, but that's one of the pieces.
You Bob Ross that thing right there.
Yeah, you know, it's a mistake I made, not thinking like, oh, this is a great pose, but not realizing I literally did it for the same show. And but it worked out, because I think the one with Dragon Boy is amazing. But this is basically the original concept to that piece. Yeah.
And what I love in the background, and you were mentioning as we were doing the pre-show.
Oh yeah.
Can you, Scott, put that up one more time, please?
Yeah. So the background on this one, what I had done is, you know, those cartoons are made, I believe, in the 50s. So I started thinking like, okay, when I'm going to paint this, I'm going to go with a wallpaper background that's close to that style, that era. So as I punched in, you know, 50s style wallpaper, the square on squares within squares came up. And then the other piece where it's just the stripes like that with the funky little signs, which is kind of Miro-ish sort of, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I loved it. And the color that's in the backdrop of that is a color that never, ever, ever gets used other than on the toenails of Draco.
Really?
Yeah, it never gets used on anything. It's specifically only for his toenails. So I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool. Let's go with this color, because I think it complements the cat, the mice, and Dragon Boy.
So for people that may, like, we're discussing characters and
Mhm.
that you created, and there may be, like, there's a large amount of us that know what these characters are and how you develop them, and like what you get to combine them with. And what I wanted to get into a little bit, one, the creation of like Marcenivo, the creation of Dragon Boy, you know, like your characters in that first
Mhm.
and then how that blended with Chuck Jones and getting to put them in with all these other legendary characters with Chuck in these scenes, which the characters seem to just fit so well in. So
Yeah.
give us a little overview, like, because I learned this for the first time on our first show,
Yeah.
where I could understand the backstory on stuff, and I was like, sign me up for whatever he's doing.
Well, it's funny again, and it boils down to, you know, for one, understanding who you work with, and the people. Like for me, I was an artist out of Maine. I was fortunate enough to, and even though I'm not with my former publisher, I was fortunate enough to find one. You know, actually, he found me, and then we worked together, and it didn't work out, but in the sense of that, you still know who you can have a good relationship with. And Scott and Mike and everybody at that original set way back, my God, 13 years ago, you develop a friendship, and it continued even after the publisher left. You continue with that. But my very first shot with them was they had asked for, I think it was Chuck's 100th birthday, for me to do something. And the one thing I thought was like, you know, a Bugs Bunny digs a hole, ends up in some other far land. And I thought, what if he did that, but he ended up in Marcenivo's world, right? So I thought that'd be kind of cool. So when I came up with the concept and I painted it, I realized like 95% of this painting is Napoleoni. And the other 5% is Bugs Bunny from here up, his hands out, and his ears. And I thought, they're never going to go for that, ever, 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 because there's like barely anything in there. But they loved it, and we went forward with it, and I was like amazed. So every year we always get an email. Like I said, I get an email from Scott. We start pretty early throughout the year. We go back and forth on what they think will be great piece. And I follow their lead on a lot of things because I don't work for the company. They do. And who knows better than those guys. So I don't question. I go with what's suggested to me. And knock on wood, it's always worked out except for the one time where I didn't add Penelope in. And everybody told me I should, and I didn't. And then I had to add her into the piece because I wasn't listening to my wife. And
so that's an interesting question.
Yeah.
So speaking of pieces, there's one painting that I've done for the Chuck Jones Gallery that I actually took back.
Mm-hmm.
It's sitting right here, right? And I'm going to add to it.
Yeah.
Because I looked at it and I'm like, it's the only one. It's the only one of everything I've done. And I'm like, no, it really, this is what it needs. So I'm going to do it. So when you are looking at that and you're like, yeah, I just need to, but you've already painted it.
Yeah.
Which means, is that color too translucent? Am I going to have to really layer this thing up? Is this going to suck? I'm just going to repaint the whole thing from scratch again. I have no idea.
Yeah.
What's it like for you going into that being like, okay, yes, you're right. I have to add that. Now let's pull that off.
The thing is, I did it and I was so proud of myself. I'm like, oh, Pepe Le Pew, and there's his heart. And he's like, oh, I found my love, and I'm like, this is awesome. And I was just so like proud of myself. I'm like, I'm going to submit this thing. I know they're going to say yes. So I started printing it. I scanned it. I glossed it. I started printing it. And I was like, let's run like 24 of these, And I sent it. And my wife comes in and she's like, where's the cat? And I was like, what do you mean? The cat that he's always chasing. I was like, no. It's the heart he found. And she's like, no, you gotta put the cat in there. I'm like, nah, you're wrong. They're gonna love it. Man, email later that day. Is there any way you can put Penelope in there? I was like, ah. I knew it though. The minute she said it, I was like, oh man, this is so not gonna go well. So in my flat file, there are I bought 24 prints that do not have Penelope in them.
So that's, and what's hilarious too is, so what was your wife's reaction when you got the note back? Was it like,
oh, she was like, I knew it. She just knew it. She didn't rub it in my face. She was just like, yeah, you should have added that in there.
Like, thanks, appreciate that.
Well, it's the worst part is you know how hard it is to remove gloss off acrylic
I don't do it. That's how hard it is. I don't do it.
Dude, I had to sit there and I'm like, I had to draw her behind the heart. Then I had to go and take 20 grit fine sandpaper and literally sand the little area where I was going to paint. So I sanded all that, made it rough, and I gessoed it, and then I applied her to that. So whoever has the original, look at that piece. She might look like she's a little bit in front of the heart.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Little. It's almost like Van Gogh when it's like the hidden portrait behind the painting, and people looking under the black light, and they're gonna be like, Fabio did what? In like 15 years, it's gonna be like some museum thing, and they're gonna hold up a light and be like, did you see what he did? And then Nicole will just be like,
yeah,
yes.
I told him to do that.
Let's get into the sketches on things as well, because what I love about working with Chuck Jones folks is they give you a wide berth, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can just go, and like you said, some stuff hits, some stuff we'll see, but you're kind of pouring it out there to see what works. And they're really good about giving constructive comments, quick turnaround stuff, whatever, which is great for us. It's move time. So I wanted to get into sketches because you go off and you just do these spectacular things that the imagination behind it. I love your pen and inks just as much as I love your paintings, because I lean heavily into the production art stuff, as you can see, right? Yeah. So I wanted to bring up a couple of the others. Can you, what piece would you like to show next?
Oh, man.
And before you like hold up the one, I don't remember which ones are available because I think a lot of these have already been taken. But go
well,
ahead.
there's if we're gonna stick with Chuck related stuff, I had to do. This was an idea that concept that Scott had sent about Roswell being the 75th anniversary of Roswell. So instantly, I was like, "Oh, this can be funny." So I had two different versions of sort of your ride is here. So, there's his little ship crashed back there, which is what they find. And here he is, and he's with a sign, basically hitchhiking into town. So there's Marcenivo. He shows up with his little wagon that he always carries everybody in. And he's like, I'll give you a ride into town. And then the other one was here, basically, he just it's so ridiculous. And there he is, the little cart, and he's dragging him along, telling him, they're closer. And now both pieces, they both have their little thumbs up. And here you can tell he's traveled. There's no more, spaceship in the background and little cactuses and stuff. But it's these are pieces that I just enjoy doing it and basically laugh because I try to draw him on here with his little, I don't know what that is.
No, so here's the thing.
It's hard. Like, how do you sit that so it fans out? And
right. I called it a skirt once, and there was someone on Instagram, love her to death, biggest Marvin the Martian fan I've ever met, and was like, dude, it's not a skirt. And I'm like, okay, yes, you are, and I'm not being facetious. You're the expert, but I just don't know what it is. So the thing that he wears around, yeah, it has to bend back. So wait a second, are those available?
I don't think they are. I think these guys never last. They go really, really fast.
I didn't even see that because if I would have seen it in the pre-show, I would have totally done an insider trading thing and grabbed it.
An insider trader. Yeah, these are so funny, man. And then, trying to draw these guys, because I don't do them as often as you do. You can probably draw these guys with your eyes closed. And then I sit there and draw it and draw it and draw it. And in some of these, you can tell, you don't see it when we're talking here because it's just black lines. But in some of these, you can tell where I've done it over and over again. And then those are the things that I like, the stuff you have behind you, the things that I love where you clearly know they're just measuring the paper and drawing the ear over and over and over again. And then you see the perfect ear within that chaos of lines,
yes.
And that is where people have said to me, like, how do you see it? I'm like, the minute it just looks like you've drawn 100 circles, but now you see the circle that is working. And it may be a combination of 3 circles that all intertwine that make the perfect face. And then you're like, there it is, right there. This is my starting point. And then you black outline that circle, and then you just go from there.
So I think it's that comment, especially when we're doing like stuff with kids and families and whatnot. You're just kind of get loosen up, whatever. And I think what's fascinating to see people's reactions to that is when you are a lot of the time, the reaction that I'll get is like, oh, well, because everyone's, they're trying to draw a perfect line. And I'm like, I don't draw perfect lines. And I'm like, do you want to see the mess underneath before I get to what I get? And I do the same thing as you. I go up for whenever the museums, the Chuck Jones museums or whatnot, and I'm going up to the production drawings, like that one right there from Baton Bunny. I did not frame that for probably 1.5 years. I kept it in the plastic so that I could hold it up to my face and like just stare at the lines, at Chuck's lines. So it's something that I think when you do yours, you can see that behind it. You finally get the right pose down, and then boom. And you've got a unique technique also, because what I love about yours is you got a hard line and a thin line, and I don't try to replicate that. I'm like, nope, yep, so, and it's such a unique style, but you still are able to like it, all of the personality of your underlying drawing is still there.
Cool. Yeah, it's you know, I never went to school for art. I opted not to attend art school right out of high school. And I opted to just, you know, blow my time with my friends and have, you know, and do that. But the art was always there. So I've learned sort of the school of hard knocks and practice and you know, trial by error over and over and over again. And still today, I mean, I've been at this for a long time. There are things I still learn from trying to paint too fast, especially with acrylics. It's the worst thing because you think you're like, oh, I love how this is textured. Wet brush, gone. You know, and you're like, yeah, well, I knew better than that. So then you have to sit there and you have to be patient and work it. But it's I think sometimes that's a really good thing, even at my mid-century age now, to still be learning stuff. It's not a bad thing.
Yeah, you just hit the 50 mark.
Yeah, well, it will be, I think, this Sunday coming.
Oh, that's right, it's coming up. Yeah. Sorry, we were
technically, yeah. My wife has reached 29 years old, so.
Good save. Yes, absolutely. So, you know, as you're you're doing something now too, like in this massive creating stuff, because our brains never shut off. Now, and Scott's telling me this, I'm faint. Can you hear me all right, or am I a little quiet?
Oh, you're good.
So apparently it's just Scott. Scott, are you in a loud room right now? I'm not calling you out, but I'm kind of. So, you know, as you're getting into this creation of kind of the chaos of moving, what has that been like in packing up things, trying to move everything off, and then going back and forth because you still have deadlines, you still got to make the stuff work. And then do you find that you've done like what I done and like, what bin is that in? I have no idea. Somewhere in the garage.
Yeah. I very thankful for Marcus. You got to meet. Yes. You guys are nerding out over making fun of over the Kenobi junk.
Wait, hold on a second. You should know that. You should know that. So like, just when we hold on a second, then I'll let you do your thing. Okay. So we're discussing, right? We're talking Star Wars. We're talking Obi-Wan. Your son is fantastic. Marcus.
You were dressed as Obi-Wan. You can't leave that out. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. I had the full robes on.
Yep.
And so, you know, we're like, well, we're discussing memes and things that you should know about Obi-Wan. And, you know, we like, if someone says hello there, what are you supposed to respond? And you're like, hi, I don't know. And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? All the Star Wars stuff you've done, all this stuff, your son is like just oozing all of this. I'm like, no, you're supposed to like, what's hilarious is at the same time, your son and I said the same thing. General Kenobi, right? And I'm like, yeah. Yes, that's so anyway, that's all. It was all out of love. It was out of love. Anyway, go ahead.
Anyway, I totally forgot what I was talking about now.
The chaos of moving.
Oh yeah, so thanks. He's been really good because there's, you know, we little by little he would come, pack the Jeep up and stuff that we weren't using, whether it be, you know, the tape or canvas or blah blah blah, and he would do multiple. The lucky thing is that we only live like two miles away from the older home, and we're trying to. The house is completely empty. There's not a stick of furniture, nothing. There's nothing in the house, but the garage where we work is still a full production studio. So as my goal was, I'm going to get Chuck Jones done. This studio is not being torn apart until we paint this. The painting is completely done. The pen and inks I did at the new house because I was just able to sit in a different room and just, you know, work on that while clearly when I watch TV shows and stuff. But the paintings, I couldn't do it because, first of all, the area we're moving to is not air conditioned. So that is brutal. And going back and forth. And then, you know, loading printers and 6-foot tables and trying to get all that thing done. So while I'm painting in one thing, he's moving to the other house and going back and forth. And finally, when Pretty Pleased with Cheese on Top was completed, I was like, okay, this is like full So now the only thing that's left in that house is my table that I paint and the flat files. And we have 15 of those. And if you have any flat files, you know that those things are in the hundreds of pounds. And they're, I mean, and that's just for one of them. Yep. And then when you have, you know, stacks of 3 of them, stacks of 5, you're talking probably 700-800 pounds of the art sitting in those flat files.
Yeah, I did not move my flat files. You know what I did? I gave them to the guy who took over my studio. I'm like, would you like those? Because it's not going in the pot.
Oh, it's again, the only reason I thought of buying new ones, but then I thought, like, I'm a sentimental guy, you know, and to me, someday when I don't use those flat files, I won't sell them. I'll probably just give them to another artist, you know. And so to me, those things represent when I took on my own, when I started publishing on my own. So a lot of the stuff that's in that, it's sad to see that little tiny studio, you know, being sold to someone that may just store a car in it or their tools or whatever. Because to me, it meant the beginning of my business, the beginning of the business that, you know, we have worked for 8 years for. And that's the part that's probably the saddest out of, like last year's show. I said to you, this is probably the last time I will ever paint on this table. Mm-hmm. You know, at my home here in Maine, it's probably the last time. And it's funny because 2 years in a row, Chuck Jones has gotten originals from the last time I was in that home. So they got it from my main home, and in my first Florida home, their originals were created in that house and will never be done there again.
Yeah, well, you're only moving 2 miles, right? I'm moving 1,000, so we're not.
Yeah, you're like a whole entire down from the top of the state down to the bottom.
Yeah, we're not moving those. So what I want is, Amber asked if they could see the beer pong chant glass again. This is for Fabio. So it's my $2.50 thrift store buy. Fantastic. There you go. Down the guzzle.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Yep. So what I find interesting when I'm talking with other creatives and we're getting and what makes you a little bit different than some is you're an entrepreneur. Like, we do this for a living, but we run our own shops. Mm-hmm. And so we're, you know, the accountants, the lawyers, the incorporations, all that kind of stuff. Like, we run our own shop. So it's not like someone is painting and then sending it off, but like, you got to run all aspects of the business. Mm-hmm. So in that time, there's got to be some, you know, where you find your inspiration amongst other things when you're done with the boring stuff, which for me is bookkeeping, anything with numbers, stuff that's not cartoons and whatever, you know, like the stuff that you're like, hold on, I got to submit my list of things yet to the state. Okay, where's my incorporation stuff? You know, and yeah, that kind of thing. So what is the one thing about running your own shop that you're just like, I know I have to do it, but it's not my thing? And then 2, right? What is the thing that you're like, I can't believe I get to do whatever, like what it's afforded you to do? Yeah.
Well, as far as I'm fortunate, my Nikki does all the bookkeeping. She does all that. I mean, it's amazing. I could tell her, hey, listen, remember this image? Do you know who got number 32? And my wife could tell me when the PO was received, when it was sent, the tracking number, who received it, and if we've been paid for it. And if at any point, if it was ever destroyed or we had to reprint it, she has all of that. All those things. And we have an accountant too, and I don't have to deal with that stuff. But she does, so God love her for that, because if it wasn't for that, I probably wouldn't be able to afford a pack of pencils and crayons. So, but the thing that I enjoy is, and it took me a while, man. I'll be honest. You know, when you first start in the art business, you're like, you're selling it for what? And I'm getting what? You know, and then you have a publisher in the middle, and you're like, something doesn't seem quite right. But as you understand the business, which is, I think, that we're talking about younger people and getting into it and how it works, I think that's the thing that everybody thinks the internet is going to be your savior into life. And at the end of the day, you still have to have a physical location to sell your artwork. You know, someone buying something on the internet, you know, and you get it home and you're like, no, this shirt's not a large, you know, and you're like, you send it back or whatever. It's not exactly what you get, but a physical location always works. So that's, to me, you know, the fact that I get up in the morning and this is what I do for a living, you know, and you're able to, like, I'm a hardcore workaholic, and I think you're the same way. Even when you have downtime, my downtime is still creating. Yep. And it's something that I can't help. My kids are like, why do you do that? You make work for yourself. I'm sorry, I was born with this brain. That's just, that's the way I am. You know, I love creating. And when I have downtime, I do that. But the only time I think of vacation that I've taken with my family where I didn't bring a pencil or paper or do anything, we went to Italy 3 years ago, and we were there for 10 days. I didn't draw anything. You think you're like, you went to Italy and you didn't absorb any of that? Boy, I absorbed it. I just didn't draw anything while I was there. I took my, you know, I took it all in. And those are the things that I think the art business has provided me. It's just the ability to, if I don't want to work today, I don't have to. You know, and as far as prioritizing everything, that's probably the toughest part for me, because I'm like, I've learned that you can wait a little bit. I've learned that you can't. I've learned that you know, you will get really, really mad at me if I only give you one original, where this guy will not. So you learn certain people, and I think at the end, it's really good relationships with people that work with you. This is what we do for a living, man. I mean, I can't, you know, it's, you got yourself a kick-ass lawnmower, you know, and I saw your daughter riding around. Those are things, dude, as crazy as that is, those are things that bring people joy. You know what I mean? Like, people like us. Me, I enjoy my little Akai, you know, old tape player, you know, and a picture of Frank Sinatra on my wall. Those are things that I love because I was able to get them because I'm in the art business, you know, and you talk to people, and those things are the things that make me happy. It's not crazy, you know, crazy over the top, you know, buying Lamborghinis and crap like that. That doesn't make any sense to me. But I would clearly go and buy a vintage Atari and find a way to make it work, and that's stuff like that for me.
So you know, when I moved down here, I told my wife, I'm like, look, you know, we've got a half acre. We're purchasing the half acre.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna have a full lot. There's studio plans on the other side. But I'm like, Daddy wants a riding lawnmower. Like, I've wanted a riding lawnmower since I was like 10, right? Because they're the best thing ever. And so I'm like, what I could do, if you want, because I do intend on fully getting the Florida Man title. Like, I'm gonna make a T-shirt. There's gonna be a whole logo design behind it. I'm gonna ride a couple of gators into town. There's gonna be something, and I'm gonna get that title. I'm gonna own that, right? So I'm like, there's one of two ways this can happen. One, we can get a riding lawnmower, right? Two, I can hook a bunch of lawnmowers up to the truck, and I can ride around the lawn in that sucker, and that's how I mow the lawn. So I can either get the push mowers, right, and then bungee cord them to the truck, and then, or like a Power Wheels or something. I don't know, right? I could get a Power Wheels. My kids have a little Jurassic Park thing, and I will mow the lawn that way without a shirt on and an army hat and a whole thing. So yes, it's the small things, you know. What I wanted to get, what I would show everybody is when I saw that you I don't know what it was. You were trying, like 1 a.m. you had finished something and you posted up what the mini is.
Yeah.
I love the fact that you do this, because I have my little face light. I've got, they're so nice. And so the mini I wanted to show for this, Scott, can you bring up Vader? Oh my gosh. First of all, you watched the Obi-Wan series. Did you finish it now?
Yes.
All right. So I'm that episode 4 and 5 with Vader. To me, like, we're getting to see Vader just be Vader. I love what Hayden Christensen pulled to it. I love the thing between him and, you know, and Obi-Wan. If you haven't seen the end of it yet, probably going to be a spoiler in here, but you should have watched it. So I saw you drop this, and I don't know if I texted you that night or in the morning, and I was like, son of a gun. I'm like, what else is available? what else, like, well, I hadn't seen anything you're doing it. You texted me a couple of paintings that you were working on, and I'm like, yeah, Jay's gotta have that. This has got to be a blast to put Marcenivo. First of all, if you're getting anything tonight, you know, you get, this is the mini. And especially coming off the Obi-Wan series, I'm like, dude, if there was ever a time to put out Vader, so good time.
Yeah.
What's it like putting your characters, getting to take your characters, which have their own iconic sense, right? They're their own icons in their own right, and then getting to blend them with stuff like this. I can only imagine it's a blast, but like when you're sitting there, oh, I got this.
Yeah, it's again, it's one of those things where I see it and I'm like, this is gonna work. You know, this is good, like this is gonna work. And it's just because of the square head and everything else that goes with it. But it's one of the coolest things. And doing the Karate Kid ones, I have a John Bender from the end of the Breakfast Club that I'm working on. And just this Vader one was done, man, I want to say 7 years ago. It's a while ago. And, you know, it's always iffy on whether you can print something and then sell it and then the copyrights and then everything else. And I think at the time when this piece came out, Ari Goldman had reached out and had asked me a few questions about Star Wars stuff. And I'm like, you know, I can't do this. I know these people and they're with Chuck Jones and I don't want to get anybody upset. So what I did is I printed 11 of those and I gave them away. I think Pop had an event and I gave them to Jen at Pop, and then they gave them to like some of their VIP clients. So there are larger versions of that piece out there, but there's only 11 people that have them. And with the white border all printed on paper. So after, like, I thought of doing it before and it was just like, this doesn't seem right. You know what I mean? It's this year and it just doesn't seem like Vader is it. But then after seeing Kenobi and that scene, you're just like, I wasn't expecting it to go that way.
Oh,
you know what I mean? But Kenobi is such a badass that I was like, this is the year to make that one the freebie. Yep. You know? And I looked really hard for the skateboard that I did of Kenobi and Darth Vader. And that was also at Chuck Jones. I couldn't find it because we were in the middle of moving and I couldn't find the pictures of it. But I had done a skateboard years ago of Kenobi on one side and then Vader on the other side. And it was just really good. And Vader is Vader. Kenobi is Marcenivo.
Oh, so, I saw that, and you know how I saw that was I called them the Three Musketeers, Rob, Amber, and Greg. so affectionately, I call them the Three Musketeers. So like if my, you know, we'll text back and forth, everybody's on different time zones. And so I get a question, I might go on something, and my wife want to be like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "It's Three Musketeers." She'll be like, "Oh, okay." She got to meet Greg, you know.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Greg, she'll meet Amber, or she met Amber, and we have yet to meet Rob, who has fabulous hair. And and dude, I look at it's just going back, right? It's just fading, and it's just going here, and I'm like, I'm trying to hang on, you know, like just keep it on the face at least. Anyway, Rob, you got fantastic hair. So maybe it was Greg who posted on the thing. He's like, "No, this is the one," or something. I forget who did, but I saw that deck and I was like, son of a gun.
Yeah, it's a good one. That one, and I think the one with Batman and Bunny Boostown as Bane.
Yes,
it's the other one is probably one of my favorites.
I was good night, man. I'm like, oh man, I don't know what you got to do to make that a print. I don't know. I don't know if we got to have like another like phenomenal Obi-Wan series round 2 and it comes out as the freebie.
Yeah,
I'm not sure, but something needs to happen.
Yeah. So leading up to that, so I love to see it. I stoked when I first saw, I think it was an ad on YouTube and it said Kenobi, and I was like, all right, who are we gonna play Kenobi? And then I saw that it was Ewan McGregor. I was like, sold instantly. I was like, yes, this is it. I have to. And then I watched the trailer and I was like, oh, this is going to be so freaking cool. So then, again, like I said, to me, it's like once you start putting facial hair on Marcenivo and the hairstyle, you just like, either it happens or it doesn't. Mm-hmm. And one night we were just sitting, I'm trying to think where we're watching. I think it was Stranger Things, the first or second episode. And I was sitting at a table, the house, and I started drawing. And as soon as I drew his face and then I outlined the facial hair, I was like,
son, come on.
This is it. This is it. So I was like,
and I swear I didn't know that was available because I didn't know until like the thing. And and again, insider trading. I would have totally insider trading. I'm not shy about that. I know it's coming. Give it to me. Insider trading. I know it's coming. And I didn't see that until like, I think by this time, like Scott, Dawn, Lisa, you know, they know better than to like, they're like, oh, you know, here's what we got coming for Fabio and whatnot. I'm like, all right, cool. Yeah. And we're going through all this stuff. I'm like, that's awesome. And I see this stuff like 10 minutes before because, you know, or they'll just hold things. Mm-hmm. And like, wow, I didn't, where is that? It's gone. Like that should be hanging up here. So you mentioned the facial hair, because what I love about what you do with the character mashups, can you just hold that up one more time, please?
Yeah.
Just, oh, come on. So what I loved about, we're going to nerd out for a second. Because this is Comic-Con. All right. And, you know, the Obi-Wan series for me started out.
Yeah. First, second, and third were.
Yeah. I'm like, no, I was like you with the trailer. I was like, what? Yeah. You know, I'm like, my Obi-Wan lightsaber is right over here. I'm like, I don't mess around, dude. I came to your party in the Obi-Wan robes, right? This is like I am all bought in on this. And so when they got to it and we're coming, like, I enjoyed Book of Boba Fett, you know, like other than like the Peter Bite gang, you know, I'm like, whatever. But the rest of it, yeah, totally loved it. And then Mandalorian just, I lose my mind. I still watch season 1 and 2. So we get into like the first 3 episodes. Yeah, I don't know about this, right?
Yeah.
And anybody who knows me and knows that both myself and my good buddy Michael Larson, who does the team that I do the jerseys for, we have a rating scale on films, right, and series, right? We have a rating series, and we had to develop this because you can't spoil anything, right? So it can't be like, oh, I really love whatever. So this is how we do it. We have like if he texts me or I text him, right, and this is even in the Obi-Wan series, it doesn't really matter what we're watching, and he'll be, you know, we text each other a diaper, right, a picture of a diaper. That means do not get up, do not do anything, keep your eyes glued to the screen. You cannot miss a moment of this. If you have to, wet your pants. Okay, all right. Diaper. Now, in the films, if we get to it, there's a potential for 3 diapers, because usually in Marvel films or whatever, we have a mid-credit and a post-credit scene. I got 3 diapers on Spider-Man that he sent me. I was on my way home from like a wedding dinner for my brother-in-law and sister-in-law, and I get a 3 diaper rating on Spider-Man, Far From Home, which, by the way, if you haven't seen that, freaking awesome.
Yeah, it is.
And so literally turned right back around, dropped the family off. He dropped his wife off. We both went back to the same theater, right? Watched it again at 10:30. So there's the diaper. Then there's the bucket of popcorn. If you text somebody a bucket of popcorn, that means that, like, it's great. It's a great film. Definitely something you should see in a theater. But there is a point where you could probably get up, get a refill, come back, right? And then if we text each other the screenshot of the Eternals, that means that kind of a dumpster fire, right? I don't know why I'm in here right now, and I've just wasted my money, or I'm wasting my time on screen. Then the absolute worst, and I don't know if I told you this, but the absolute worst, we will text each other, and it's the same GIF, whatever you want to call it. If it's Luke Skywalker drinking the green milk from that sea cow in the worst movie in history, The Last Jedi. Of all, I'm not just talking Star Wars, I'm talking them all. If we text each other that means this should be burned from the archives. No one should ever mention this again, right? So anyway, we get to the Vader stuff, and he gets to see it before me on the Kenobi with the 5 and 6. And I get the diaper thing, and I'm like, yeah. I texted him a diaper on the 6th one because I'm like, did you just see what happened?
Oh yeah.
So when you came out with these sketches, and then I saw the Obi-Wan one just as we were going on, which was too late because everybody else was seeing them and they're gone. And I'm like, no, because I'm like, I was at his party as Obi-Wan. I'm like, this is me. So anyway, I love that. I love the fact now when you're dealing with mashups, Amber, for you, when you're dealing with mashups, is there subject matter that you just love to nerd out and play in, where you're like, man, I have endless things that I could do with this?
Oh, it's the Star Wars stuff is the coolest. I had probably done more Star Wars stuff. One of my favorite ones is where he's Han Solo at the bar, and who shot first? I think is the title of that one. And you could clearly see a little heart shooting out of the phaser, and it's laser, whatever.
Blaster.
Yes, thank you very much. I said every other reference to every Star Trek and everything else, but not the right one.
You could have done pew, and I would have known what you're talking about.
Yeah, pew pew. I love those. I have yet to do a speeder. And going back and forth, being at a friend of ours, Dan Wackerly's home for the 4th of July. He has some Star Wars collectible stuff that I was like, oh my God, I need to have that. I don't have any Star Wars stuff.
Wait.
But I was like, I need to have that. Because I always thought the speeders were the coolest. Return of the Jedi, not my all-time favorite, but that is probably the coolest thing of the whole. And he has this beautiful sculpture of one, and it's probably about 12 to 14 inches. And then he sent me this one that they're reissuing that's about 18 to 20. And I was like, oh, I need to have that. So there, at some point, there's so many more things that you could do with Star Wars, especially when I take Darwin as my little Darwin character and turn him into, a Wookiee, and I'm trying to think of what else. Again, the speeders, the Ewoks.
Yeah.
Dude, there's so much.
So I find, especially when you're sketching around and, throwing stuff around, trying to concept ideas on things. What happens now? We went like in an earlier show, maybe this was the first or the second one. We went into the bins of Fabio, right? Which I'm not claiming a trademark to copyright. That's all you can call it whatever you want to have a thing, right? And it's the bins of Fabio. So when you're going in and you're concepting out, and there's gotta be, I do it, but that doesn't mean everybody does it, where you'll sketch something and it's like, okay, and then it just goes. And then later, maybe you revisit it and you pull it back on. You're like, I could do something with that. Or it just sits. How many would you say that you concept out and that actually make the cut?
It's funny you ask, because I have, I brought only a couple of pieces with me that's the pen and ink stuff. But it's like this is a concept. See that? I just drew that. And then from that is how I got the one where he's in the background, the little spaceships in the background. You know what I mean? So this is the Sam and Ralph piece. This is the concept of that. That's what I drew. What is that? It's like a mushroom, Marcenivo, and a hound dog. I don't even, you know what I mean? It's like, what is that? And then, so this is one that I wanted to do really bad, and it just didn't work out the time he did. I wanted to put him on top of the spaceship.
Oh,
see that? And it's just little things like this. These are the things that I keep. I don't throw away. This is the. See how I drew them in there? There's nothing there, but you could see how I came up with that from this.
Which I just want to say, yes, you got to thumbnail stuff out. Hold up that one again, because I think that one's I don't know if that one's still available or not, but if you can check with
Yo, and look at the title. Look at the title. Cheesy does it, fellas. It's so dumb.
No, it's coming up with titles. I don't think it's not just something that comes, like sometimes it takes some work to get a title name. Like, do you ever go through pieces and you're like, no, no, why can't I get this? What's the name of it? I don't know.
It happens. Sometimes I wait and wait and wait and wait, and I'm like, then it just hits me, and then that's just it is. And sometimes the title is there, and then you have to come up with the piece. You're like, oh, this is the title to this piece has to be this, and excuse me, and it has to include Marcenivo, and it has to have, right.
Come on.
So that was I wanted this to be really long.
Yeah.
And at the very, very bottom, it would be one heart that was glowing, and it was being sucked up by.
Come on.
Yeah, and I just didn't, because we were moving the studio, and I was like, this is the one. Another one that I probably will. I'm sure Scott will be like, yes. So here's Marcenivo telling Ralph to put the sheet down, while Sam is over here like, I'm gonna knock your teeth out.
Look, I'm now clearly I'm not Scott, but I can see him watching the screen right now. And even though he thinks my voice is faint, he's going to hear this part. So I can't officially give the green light to anything. I have no power or control, but Craig can.
I can.
If we can just, green light the Marvin with the glowing heart and the last one with Ralph and put the sheet down. Can we green light? Scott's giving 2 thumbs up.
Yeah, well.
Let's
absolutely. Then we've got 4 thumbs up. I mean, there's thumbs up everywhere. So
mine don't count, right? Mine don't count. But like, please do that.
Yeah, those are the ones I originally planned to do, and then the other ones popped up, and I was like, oh, I've never done these guys in this specific, but this one here, like I said to you at the beginning, I was like, I always do them in full view. Yes. And I wanted to do something where they're a little bit closer. You can see more of their details in their faces and stuff. But that one is hilarious, man. You have Marcenivo at one end telling you to put the sheet down, and then you have Sam on the other side. It's like, I'm gonna pound you,
But so, I think it's a great compliment piece to the one that you did for the show this time, which is phenomenal. Because it just goes so well together. Now, what I want to tell people is if you have questions, please, you can pop them in the chat because the chat's working. And then we have people who are live. And in about 10 minutes, maybe a little less, we're going to go ahead and go to the gallery in San Diego. And then people are going to get to ask you questions, which I am thrilled to death about, that we had this live interaction. So now that Craig's back on, because Craig, I was calling for you, but you didn't hear me.
I didn't. I was away for a little while. I've been on here since 3 o'clock my time, so it's.
Yeah, no, I hear, but little tear. So.
That's okay. I'm back.
So what you've obviously it's a great relationship with Chuck Jones and with Fabio and all this wonderful art that goes around, and just these insanely creative characters on both his and Chuck's, right, and that merger. What's it like to see someone like Fabio interpret in ways that just, for one, I think and again, this goes to my earlier point with, I love what Fabio does because of everything, all the thought that he puts into it. There's always a story behind something. And so what's it like to see that merger of worlds with his characters, which are so iconic, and then Chuck's characters, which are so iconic?
Well, it didn't start off this way. I mean, it started off, we were representing Fabio's artwork a long time ago. I mean, back when he was like 12, 13 years old, and he was doing doodles with the other hand and whatnot. So we've been together for a very long time. And I think what drew me to your artwork, and I'll talk to you instead of in the third person, like he's not here.
Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Ben, like, what do you think of this guy? And he's not really here. That's okay. So because I mean, you weren't in the classic genre that we have been in with, classic animation. But the thing is that the most important thing to Chuck, I believe, and certainly what he said to him in his animation and his painting and everything, it's character. And so, your artwork that you developed and your characters, it's not just a painting. It's a story. It's a character that you're creating. It's a character. It's part of you that you're bringing to the world in a beautiful way. And so I was intrigued by the storytelling. And and your characters have been animated, but the idea of and I think that was the biggest win that Chuck had, that he had the ability to take his characters that he created when he was at Warner Brothers and bring them to life in a single frame. And many of the other directors or animators didn't have that ability. They had the ability to animate, they had the ability to draw, but Chuck had this unique ability, because he was a fine artist first, to take these characters and create the expression and the movement in a single frame. And that's what you're doing with your paintings. I get the story, I get the position, I get the every part of it, of who the characters are. And then I don't remember how many years it was ago, 6, 7, 8 years ago, that we started to collaborate utilizing the characters. And it really was part of the next phase when Chuck passed away in 2002. And are you guys hearing a weird squiggling in the background, by the way? Because it may be just be my I don't have a hearing aid, but it feels like I do, and it's speaking to me. I don't know. Maybe you guys are literally in my head. But the idea of the us being able to, when Chuck passed away, to have artists to use the characters that he loved to paint, to bring the characters into their artwork, into your artwork. And I think it was never Chuck's hope, or any of our hope, that anybody would replicate what Chuck did, because Chuck had his own style. Chuck had his characters and his paintings. So now all of a sudden you're taking these creations that obviously I know you love, and growing up with them, and the characters, who they're supposed to be, and now how would your characters interact with them? And so, like Gentlemen, I mean, it's such a classic. Hubie and Bertie and Claude, I mean, they were early characters that Chuck created and directed. And to bring them to life with your characters. And I love the story about how you changed, that all of a sudden it took a left turn at Albuquerque, and it truly became something different because you had an inspiration. And as Chuck, would always say, you look for that happy accident. And that's what he called it. He called it a happy accident. And he said most mutations, most accidents, die quickly because they have no legs. But the ones that do have legs, you've got to be aware of them, and then you've got to grasp onto them and see where they go. So to answer very long way to your short question, Ben, I am thrilled to see what you do, Fabio, with the characters, with your storytelling, and you're nailing the characters. And that's, I think, what it's not easy. I mean, as I'm sure it's not easy to hit these characters right. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of practice. I have to go back to the old school way of doing things. Like, I look at them, and if you just try to draw a little line going, and it looks like this, it doesn't work. Yeah, I have to go back to the traditional way of the circle and the circle and the circle. And, I have to do that for me to nail those. And there is, and the funny thing is, it looks like I try to get as good as I can, but when I see the one done by Chuck and then one done, I can clearly tell that I got the ingredients, just not the right portions, and that's the best way that I can describe that. I have the right ingredients to bake a cake, but do I get the right portions? Is it going to taste good? Is it too salty? Is it going to rise enough? That is the difference between, so to me, if I can't do it, then I'm just not going to. And that's just, I think of that because, again, in the relationship with you guys, and I'm not going to just wing, a Ralph or a Sam or a Hubie. I'm just not going to wing it and be like, oh, that's close enough.
Yeah.
You know, because at the end of it, I'm not only, to me, I feel like I'm insulting Chuck and then myself at the same time, because it just looks like a lazy piece of art. And then on top of that, you have this guy who draws these things in colored pencils and God knows what else. And he's like, I had 5 minutes to spare before I made a sandwich.
Isn't that the
Look
truth?
what I came up with.
Well, I will say, the portions may not be exact to what Chuck has done, but you have got great proportions, so they're coming out just enough Chuck and just enough you and just enough Hubie, just enough Birdie, just enough Ralph and Sam, so that it is your interpretation in a beautiful way. So that's what that's the goal, and so you're killing it that way. And
awesome.
And this guy, he's doing fine too.
I don't know.
It's fun.
It's what you. I know you say the right proportion or the right ingredients and whatnot, but I think what's great about this, and it's even when I look at Chuck's stuff, there's such a versatility to what he did. I love his charcoal, I love his watercolors, I love his paints, I love his Nescafe, still one of my all-time favorites. I got to see some of his original stuff when we were out last September, and some of his drawings, Lindo that has, and I'm blown away by this stuff, like just blown away. And when I look at stuff that you do with that, what it to me, and especially reading through Chuck's writings and stuff like that, and obviously Craig could speak more to this than I can because he knew the man. But it's that interpretation of things, and you have the likenesses of all the characters, you have it all there, but your style, which is what we want, like we want style. If it was 100% Chuck, it wouldn't be 100% you. Like, so there's something that you bring to that nobody else can bring to it. And I think you have the right ingredients and the right proportions, because it's exactly what it should be in the style. We know exactly what it is, but it's your style, and that's your story, your style with these legendary characters. That's to me what makes the perfect combination.
Awesome. Thank you.
So bring up just real quick, bring up the gentleman, please, image, Scott, if you would. Yeah. So there is a little bit of crossover here between Ralph and Sam, and just a hint of Coyote, which is a perfect combo plate, because obviously it was a different character, different color nose. People oftentimes don't know the difference between Wiley and Ralph, but the idea of this relationship between them, and you nailed it. There's some people who try to draw Sam with eyeballs, and yes, he's got eyeballs, but you don't really need to see them unless it's one of those takes. But this, that he can actually see, because no matter what, when Ralph comes up and does this sort of thing and there's nothing, and then all of it, the exact same moment, it's just like, bam, of course I've got you, because I can see everything. It's like your mother, can see everything you do no matter where you are. I got eyes in the back of my head. And so tell me the look on Marcenivo's face. I mean, it is an expression. What were you trying to achieve in that moment? Because I love the arm just delicately around.
Yeah, it's that, and that was the part too. So it's a mixture of humorous when I've seen that scene where he just like boom, he just grabs the bite, and it's amazing. But if you notice, both characters in this piece are both smiling. So even though one is insulting the other, the fact that Marcenivo is holding this little heart in between them, like a bar fight, and you have two guys that are going right at it, and there's always that one person like, dudes, seriously, why can't we just like get along? That is Marcenivo's part. He's the third party who's like, there's a chance you're going to get decked too. But here he is. He's showing them that, and the piece is neither one of the characters is upset.
No.
You know, Ralph isn't upset. Neither is Sam. Sam's got a little bit of a smirk. I put that
Yeah,
little
I know.
twist up there, and it, you know, and then and the same thing with the other. No one's upset that this is happening. You know, I think they're realizing now. You know, this sad puppet might be onto something. So,
Well, you know, they really obviously they don't dislike each other. They're playing roles, and
exactly,
so you know when
exactly.
they're there and they take a lunch break, they're hanging out, and then when the whistle
when they come
you know,
into work
stops,
together,
right?
you have
Exactly.
your job to do. I have mine. Good luck with stealing the sheep today. And
Oh,
funny.
I tell you, it is, and I think there's something there about maybe a lesson by Chuck and Mike Maltese and the guys who came up with the concepts that you know you can put yourself into something 100%, but then when you're done with that, leave it behind.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, go to a different part of your life. And there's something very healthy about, you know, not being totally invested. You can be involved all you
Mm-hmm.
want when you're in it, but then when you're done, it's like when you said you went to Italy, you were 100% immersed in your vacation,
Yeah.
and that was the right thing for you at that moment. And
Yeah.
so I love that message of being able to let things stop and then they pick it up. You know, when Sam says, "We'll pick it up here in the morning, Ralph,"
Yeah.
then he's hanging over
the cliff. Yeah.
out there. Yeah. So I love that. Now, Scott, can you bring up the one other the Hubie Birdie? Oh yeah, yeah. So the I mean, Hubie and Birdie in those cartoons were some of the best. I mean, you know, yeah, sure, and you know, you get that interaction back and forth, Smart and just the follower and the leader and that kind of stuff. But then you get Claude, and although Claude, you know, got totally messed with in Mouse Wreckers, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, they kept going after him. The way you have got his look, his pensive look around there, like, what is going to happen to me next, is such a perfect glimpse of the interaction between Hubie and Birdie and Claude. So, I mean, was there a certain image that you referenced for that, or is that, you know, what
No,
you wanted to get out of
there
the
was
character?
one, and you know what, in looking, because it is funny how, you know, as art progresses, some characters you draw and they're perfect, and you're like, this is it. This is the way he's gonna look forever. You might change a little bit here, a little bit there, but the character changes. Hubie and Birdie are them. You know, it's who they are. You can see the physique, the shape, everything. But Claude, I looked at multiple images of him throughout the years. The one where he's got the solid yellow face, the one where he looks like a raggedy cat, and then the one where only half of his face is yellow. And I looked at multiple images, and what I tried to do is go with the Claude that went with the most closest to the era of Claude, Birdie and Hubie.
Yeah, Hubie and Birdie.
That's why I went with him. I loved the Claude with the half yellow, but that wasn't these guys, you know. And I didn't want to. I wanted to stay true to that era of when they were actually on the same cartoon together, and that's what I wanted to do. And that image is actually a full image. I think he's peeking around the corner, but I love this face. But he was
so good.
Yeah, he was looking in the other direction. I think his eyes are much wider. And I loved how one eye was raised and the other one's kind of like, I love that. And then I took a little bit from one and a little bit from the other, and then made a little the sort of the questioning, worried look on his face.
Yeah, and the pupils are perfect in that he's like whoop, down in there. So
yeah, it's a funny face, and I debated whether at one point whether that was going to be a wall behind him and he was peeking around the corner. But then I just like the cat sort of, you know, sneaking up from behind the table and just taking a peek. Because I thought that's a lot of things you see in those older cartoons where they would just sort of sneak up a little bit, and then they would go back down. I love that.
Well, hopefully that answers your question, Ben.
Yes. Speaking of questions, we wanted to get to the live audience. So Scott Dickin, do you have, I'm looking at the live shot. Do we have someone who would like to ask Fabio a question? Hi, how are you? What's up?
Looking at the computer.
Yeah. Oh. Wait, what do you got in the tubes? What did you get?
I know. Yeah, lightsabers. Hey!
Hey! All right, Scott, you're on deck. So we've got a couple of questions from the audience. Scott Ryder will know when to switch because we'll have people there.
Yeah, you can put Fabio and Ben back on until we get the audience participation. There you go.
So when you're looking through these films, do you find yourself, like, for one, I've got to watch more cartoons, and then you're going for the right moments. I've found, and I don't know if this is the same way with you, that I'll go through when I'm trying to concept stuff out, and I'll look at films that, like, I have my set favorites, but like the Ralph Sam thing, I haven't seen Ralph and Sam in a while, and so to relive those moments, and so is there something when you're going through there you're like, oh, I find stuff in Chuck's work all the time that I crack up at, and it's stuff that in cartoons and films that maybe I haven't seen in a while. So do you have that same kind of moment where you're like, all right, I'm gonna go through some films, and then all of a sudden stuff starts grabbing you?
Well, it's because I haven't seen them in so long, and then I will put one on, and then I catch myself 5-6 deep now into it, and then I not only that, but I can't remember, like, I really enjoyed a scene. I'm like, okay, or which one was that in? So I have to go back through, and then what I have is, like, I pretty much have a library of screenshots. Like, I'm like, oh, this is perfect. I love the way, like we were talking earlier about Chuck's positioning of the characters and how the fine art world, you could tell by just looking at one picture exactly what that character was thinking. That's what I try to capture. It's like I'm watching it, and it's, your standard, sometimes a character walks across, but it could be the shoulder in one direction, but the way the head looks, and the eyes are not looking in that direction, but the eyes seem to be looking at you. It's stuff like that that always makes me wonder, like, was that done on purpose? Those are the things that, to me, when you look at these cartoons, and you now you're seeing them I'm not seeing them as a young kid who's enjoying just the moment. Now I'm looking at an adult who's thinking these things are created by adults, and I know what I do in my art. Were these guys doing the same thing? And that is sometimes the questions I want to ask is, like, was this done on purpose, by accident? Did you purposely break the fourth wall in this 1950 something cartoon? You know what I mean? It's just little things like that capture my mind, and then it makes me wonder if they did it on purpose.
Well, I can answer that.
Yeah. You have the right guy on for that one.
Yeah. So the answer to your question is yes. It was absolutely on purpose, and every part of it, the design. I mean, these were some of the best fine artists. Background designers. You've got Maurice Noble. You've got Phil DeGard as painting. You've got Chuck's fine art background. So the way that they position themselves, and it was very intentional. So the answer is yes, they were, and it was 6 to 9 months of creating a cartoon. So think about that. A single cartoon is 6 to 9 months of work, and months of design and preparation before it ever gets into production. So and you can see it in Chuck's paintings that his design is very purposeful, on where he wants to take your eye and what story he wants to tell you, and what the expression, the little tiniest thing, like you said, that little, part of the lip says so much. And if it were coming down an eighth of an inch, it would be completely different. And so those were all very intentional.
Emotion.
When we get done with this, when we hear this next question, I will share with you one little sneak peek of the next show, but talking about Ralph Wolf. So, but let's go get in studio, as they say.
Guys, Question, comment, comment and a question for Fabio. I've been to many of your shows, obviously, and one of the things that you said about the woman getting upset is almost the exact opposite of what my son said the first time he joined me at one of the shows. He was so proud and so amazed at how much time you spent with the people and talking to them. And that is one thing as a collector and also someone who loves your art that is truly appreciated. I just needed to say that.
No, thank you.
My only question you're welcome. The question I have is there a favorite Chuck Jones character for you to mash with?
Oh, I haven't done it that often. I mean, I did one this year, but I wanted to do more Foghorn and Henry pieces. This guy, I laughed the entire time I was drawing. I was trying to get him.
What's that been?
I was trying to get him correct, and the entire time, and then the little junior over here, this thing was ridiculous. I laughed hysterically. That this was the last piece I created. This one right here.
Oh,
and
that is awesome.
I love those. I thought the little nerdy chick is just amazing. Like I instantly thought of like him. He would be awesome in front of like a computer or like an old arcade game. And like the old Ataris, and while the other characters are around him, while he's teaching them how to play video games, is just this generation of kids. And I just thought it would be funny to use him as a kid from the 80s, because we all know the kids from the 80s and 90s now, you know, they're multi-billionaires into the tech world and whatever. But you have a 7-year-old, I know my 5-year-old nephew that's just like a genius when it comes to computers, and I think that little character, he's what, 60 plus years old, and it just captures, I think, today's youth perfectly.
Thank you.
Dave, do you have a wait before you leave, Dave, do you have a favorite character of Chuck's that you would like to see mashed up?
I'm always a Bugs Bunny fan.
There you go. Well, he's done some great Bugs Bunnies, but we'll have to inspire him again.
I own some.
With that being said, another one that Scott had mentioned was the opera piece.
What's Opera Doc? Yeah.
Yeah, and I tried. Like I was working on different things. So I have Marcenivo as Elmer Fudd, because I love Bugs Bunny with the lipstick and the hair, and I love that. And I was having a hard time. Like, do I keep Elmer and then put Marcenivo in the braids, or do I do? So there's a possibility that will come, I'm sure, at some point too, because I love that. And he had mentioned the horse, and I was trying to incorporate that into it, and it's just too much to put into a pen and ink, but it would probably work also as an original down the road.
Well, I think you've got to put Marcenivo on the back of that big horse coming down, you know, with a showcase, and Bugs and Elmer would be down at the bottom waiting for him. So, you know, it's the new entree.
There's a painting of that, definitely, because the colors are that scene is phenomenal. The depth to it.
Yeah, that's Maurice Noble, and hey, I know this man. That's an Andy Turner.
Oh yeah.
Hey, I know you. Yes.
Hey.
Mike.
Hey, Andy.
Hey, how are you guys?
Oh,
good to see you. Good to see you. Good to see you. My question is whether there's going to be a standalone Ben Olson show.
Yeah, you know what? The best part about the Ben Olson show is we have a guest celebrity host that's coming in to actually just be the star of the show. And Ben's artwork is going to be secondary, but we haven't revealed that guy yet. So yes, tomorrow night. What time is that, Ben? And who is that host that you were able to finagle?
Yeah, it's the.
But we can't reveal that yet.
No reveal yet. It's kind of like the Lost Rabbit, you know. It's a lost host now. Yeah, I like it.
You have to tune in. Tune in
tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night from the gallery. But that would be very cool if you could do that. My other question is, Fabio, do you need me to put another $1 in the meter? Because your car is still running out here. We kind of planned on you being in person, so it's kind of awkward, but I think we can make some change and go take care of that. But my real question, the reason I'm butting in tonight a day early, is Fabio and Ben are two of my favorite people. And I wondered if you guys ever talked about doing a collaboration, since you guys seem to get along so well, even though you have little different styles in painting and taste. But have you ever talked about doing something together?
Well, I'll answer this, Ben. Then you can. Ben has sent me sketches that I've looked over, and they're fantastic. And there's something there that can go back and forth. But I suggested, now that he lives maybe an hour and a half, right? An hour and a half from my home. I believe sometime last week I just had this epiphany, and I was like, hey, listen, why don't we do this? I go to your house, we sit down and draw pen and inks back and forth. Like, I'll draw something, you draw something, all on the same piece of paper. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, call it good, set it aside. Then we start with another concept, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, set it aside. Then Ben can come to my house, and then we can sit by my pool, and we can do the same thing. And then at the end of it, I'm sure we probably will let you guys have it, and then see where we go from there. Because I don't think any other galleries, you guys would be like, no, it's not happening.
That sounds awesome.
I thought that would be a really cool idea.
Showing this.
Yeah, I know.
I think it would be more fun to watch that process.
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
Especially after the second
awesome.
bourbon.
Yeah, exactly. We start out with one sketch, and then we'd be like, all right, this is not going to go well.
Like, why did we Instagram live it? I don't know.
I know.
Yeah, so that's I thought would be really, really cool, because then it's more of a spontaneous thing going back, where people feed off each other a little bit more than going back and going back and going back. And if we're sitting there, we're just shooting the shit back and forth, and I think it would work out where you could create some unique things. He does his thing, I do mine, we mesh them together, and who knows what could happen. I mean, it could be a scene, or it could be something like maybe like a pop surreal, where everything is just in La La Land. Nothing really makes sense, but it kind of does. So I think that's a cool idea. Plus, it gives us an ability to go and hang out at each other's homes and have cocktails and lunch, and so
it would be cocktails are the lunch, Fabio.
It is.
Bloody Marys.
At the end, it would be a Napoleon. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool. I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he brought that up, and I was like, yes. Like, yeah. Down.
Yeah, it would be. I think it'd be a really cool idea, just in the sense of, I draw everything. I do everything in pencil, and he does his in pencil and the blue pencil, and just to see that in the background and then have it outlined would just be really, really cool.
Well, and I'm a big fan. Like, for one, we're only an hour and change away, so to be able to do stuff in person, in the jam, like, I'm used to that in the design world with where I'm pitching and we're doing stuff, and and Fabio can attest to his experience. We don't often have a lot of that because we're just doing our own thing in our own spaces. Mm-hmm. But to be able to get together and jam, all day long. So
it raises another question though, Fabio. You have the Marcenivo character, which is yours that you've created. Mm-hmm. How would you feel working with that character and another artist, Ben? Would that character appear in the mashup, do you think?
Oh yeah, that's exactly what I mean. I mean, Ben does what Ben does, and I do what I do. But we, like, right now, I create the Chuck Jones characters and then put my characters into it. Ben would do what Ben does, and then we basically do something together like that. You know what I mean? Where he might draw Bugs or Marvin, and then we sort of work something where both of those characters are together. But it's his style, the way he does his things, and the way I do my things. Or either way, I mean, I think Ben and the 16-year-old, she's not 16 now, she's probably in 18 or 20. But there are two people that I've ever seen draw Marcenivo that are spot on, and Ben's one of them. I mean, I've had it. There are other really, really famous artists that have tried drawing him. They can't do it. They can't.
Well,
It's sad. It's really sad. I'm like, you're fat.
and that's the question.
Like,
and-
I
and
can
that's
draw
exactly
your
the
character, but
question.
you can't draw mine.
Well, and that's exactly it, because you're both known, and in this group with Craig, for drawing characters that Chuck
Yeah.
popularized and made famous. And now this is your character that has gained fame.
Yeah.
And how do you feel when you see somebody else drawing that?
Oh, nobody. He did it. What I think he did it as a
Loki.
yeah, and he did it as Loki, which is kind of funny because he did, like, I've done something similar to that, but he did it too, and it's really cool to see. I just take it as a compliment. It's not, even when I see people do it on Instagram and stuff like that. It's just really, it's cool. I mean, and people get them tattooed and they do their own versions of it. And at the end of the day, it's an honor to have created something that somebody else wants to do or create. It's the same way I feel like with Chuck stuff. The fact that I have the ability to create that stuff, and given the blessing, I'm not on Instagram or making fake crap, you know what I mean, stealing it. I have the blessing from the people at Chuck Jones. So to me, I'm like, okay, that's great, you did that, but do you know these people? Did you ask them permission? No, you don't have that. You know what I mean? We're two people that have that blessing. So you see it, some other artist who does it, like, oh, I've done this. I'm like, whatever. You know, it's like, you didn't get the blessing from the family. You didn't get, you know what I mean? There's a caveat to that you carry with you. That it's like, like I've said it 1,000 times, a feather in your cap, that you're like, we're sitting here having this conversation. You know, we were invited to be a part of this. And there's probably 1,000 other artists that would trade places with us in an instant if they could.
Just remember, we can give you the blessing and we can take it away.
Don Corleone.
I tell you, and you said the blessing of the family. I'm like, wow.
Just when I think I'm out, they pull me right back.
Craig, somebody is taking the blessing of your audio away right now, Craig. So
I know.
be nicer to these two guys.
It's the gremlins.
So, if you don't mind, Fabio, if you don't mind, I have one last question.
Sure.
And that is whether it's too late to still wish you a happy 50th birthday.
It's not too late. Ben was at a little shindig that my friends had put together in Orlando. And it was the funniest thing. I come into the room and everybody's saying hi. And I look over and I was like, why is Obi-Wan Kenobi like 7 feet tall? No, my birthday's actually this Sunday.
Ah, very good. My goodness.
Well,
happy early birthday.
Happy 50th.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I
Well,
gotta
you're in the realm of good birthdays, because, you know, Sunday is yours, Monday is my mother's,
Oh,
and Wednesday, you know whose birthday is on Wednesday, right? Bugs Bunny.
yes.
I
That's
know.
funny.
Go figure. Bugs Bunny will be 82. So what the heck?
Looks
80,
fabulous.
yeah, 82. I
He
know.
looks fabulous for 82.
I know. Yeah, still killing it. Oh my
We could
goodness.
all be cartoons.
Yeah. So, Dan, I'm going to send it back to you, because I think we can go on as long as anybody cares. So,
Not normally, last time, Fabio, we go long, and it's just the way things happen. So
as it
sorry
should be.
about that. Yeah, and because what I love about this guy is he's just and I told him this before too, because you'll meet other artists and guys who create stuff, and sometimes the ego just overshoots everything else, and it totally ruins everything, because it's a high and mighty whatever. It's a why am I, whatever. And Bob, the most down to earth, normal guys that is also highly creative and entertaining. So it's always a pleasure, which is why things can go on. And last time we did an Instagram live after party, which I don't think we can do this time because we have Eric Balza coming up. So I think that's our kind of go-to now, is like, do we need to go over? All right, Instagram live. Let's do that. What do you want to do? Let's draw stuff and give some stuff away and do some things. And I'll bet you can't do that on a canvas in 10 minutes. Ready, set, go.
Yeah.
And you know, Bowser won't be here for another 10 or 15 minutes. So we've got all the latitude that we need.
So I
So whatever you need to do.
Well, I want, you know, first of all, your friends are awesome. And it was great to like meet. It's one thing as we do these shows, and I was explaining this to Craig too, which is why I'm glad to have a pop-up gallery in San Diego. It's great to just get out and meet people. And, you know, like you feed off, like you seem like one of those guys. Like I'd totally be assuming, but I'm probably not. Like you feed off, like we can turn on and turn off the, you know, extrovert, you know, because when we need to do things, we shut things down and we go do whatever. But we need and feed off that, you know, crowd interaction, meeting people, getting to know people, hearing the stories. So do you find that, especially in stuff like this, you know, where we're able to get out and do shows, and I'll go back to the Disney when we were at, you know, all men out for Disney for the Festival of the Arts, that it just kind of fills the tank. And like I said, you know, like I met your friends at when we did the Orlando thing a year or two ago, which was awesome because they're wonderful people. And Todd had more outfit changes than I really understood until after we left and all the pictures posted. And I'm like, how many things did you wear? I don't even, you started out in a Mylar balloon suit, sweating to death. And now you're in
Golden Corral potato wrap.
Yes. So, you know, it's cool to see that and be around that. Like, how, you know, do you find that just kind of fills the tank? And, you know, and then what does that do as this for, like, Dave's out there, you've met Dave. Thank you, Dave, for, you know, popping on and asking a question and a comment. You know, do you find it just fills the tank?
Yeah, for sure. I think COVID was, you know, because we were home basically for almost 2 years. And you do these virtual things, and they're great because you're able to still do an event where multiple people are all over the country. And now before you're like, oh, I can't make it, or I can't make it, or he can't. But you can. We're all here doing this. But the part that, for me, I enjoy, even sometimes when you know the show is supposed to end at 9 and now it's 11, it's 12, and you still sometimes within that period of when the show is supposed to end to when the show actually ends, you're going to bump into one person that's going to tell you a story that you're never going to forget. That you know that they waited the entire time because they wanted to share that personal experience. Those are things that definitely fill the tank with, you know, it's just good thoughts, and then it's inspiration, and then you start thinking about it. Like my wife and I, we on the drive back to the hotel or while we're in the plane, we're like, oh my God, did you remember that little kid that was so excited about, you know, and his dad waited with him for like 7 hours, and then the kid made out like a bandit. You know, everybody in whatever was left, people were giving him, and he was so overwhelmed, he was just crying. Like, why are all these people being kind? Because, you know, it's not just me, it's everything, like we're talking about standing in line and feeding off other people's goodness, that it all comes down, and you bless this one little boy who just had a little open edition. Now all of a sudden he's leaving with like $1,000+ of the art. And that's no joke. That is no joke. I mean, he bought a $99 piece, and I bet he left with over $1,000 of the art. People gave him books, they gave him stuff they had bought for themselves. Now they gave it to him, and you're just like, this is just the kindness that you get from the people that go to these art shows. And I think it's, you know, what we do, we create characters. We create characters that I think sort of create avenues for people there's an emotional value to them. You know, and I think people relate to that. You know, I'm not saying anything negative about people who paint landscapes or wine bottles or anything like that. But I think what we do is we bring these little characters that don't exist to life, and then we sort of make them. We think they actually do live, because they provide us with a little bit of joy. If that makes sense. Like the girl who loves Marvin the Martian. You know, this character does not exist, but to that individual, he provides her joy, and whether he exists or not, it doesn't really matter. You know, it's what we get from the art, and what it gives others. That's the thing that, you know, that I focus on, and I enjoy the most. I could have the crappiest day on the planet, and I've gone to shows where I'm like, I don't kind of want to be here. I'm not kind of in a good mood. You know, either my puppy's sick or, you know, whatever it is. But then you go to these events, and then the people that are there they give you something in return. I think that's where this whole thing is phenomenal.
So
And I love what I do.
There's two things. Like one, I think what's interesting to me about this in a cool way of is I play on Instagram the most, right? And you play pretty heavy on Instagram. You got a fantastic Facebook following and group on there. Love playing with those guys. And there's times where you'll get comments. I get messaged all the way around all kinds of stuff. And I think the most interesting thing to me, and would love your reaction on this, is I get pictures, like people will message, right? And they'll be like, hey, so my girlfriend and I just got matching tattoos of this Wile E. Coyote running through the wall drawing that you did. And I'll be like, and they'll reference the drawing. And I'll be like, what? and then one dude got like this, I had like little Boba Fett Marvin and Jango Fett Marvin, and they're having ice cream. It's on Cloud City. And the dude's getting the whole scene tattooed on his leg.
Yeah.
And they just send the stuff to me, like in progress. And I'm like, I think it's the coolest freaking thing ever, right?
Yeah.
So what was your reaction when people started like tattooing your stuff on them? Because that's fairly permanent. And,
well, yeah, dude, it blew my mind. And I want to say, I don't know if it was maybe in the last 6 months or so. Sometimes on Facebook it'll say, or Instagram, it'll show you that someone wants you to watch or wants you to video face chat with them or whatever it is, right? And you're like, I don't know this person. Right. You know what I mean? I'm like, this is kind of weird. Why would somebody do that? And one day I looked and it said they were at a tattoo parlor and in Vegas. And I was like, screw it, whatever. Let's see what happens. And I went live with this person while they were in the shop in Vegas. And we're FaceTiming each other through the phone. And they're like, oh my God, he picked up. And then he just basically wanted to show me that he was getting Marcenivo tattooed on his calf and how cool it looked. It was at Huntington in Vegas.
Dude, I think that's something like in this realm of things. I look at it, I'm like, you got tattoos, I've got tattoos, I'm adding more to it, and like I said, I'm gonna get Marcenivo cap, and it's probably right here. And so there's something to that when, and that's what I find in like this outreach on stuff, especially in the digital world of stuff. And I like, the reactions and the stuff that you get, and just to kind of be like, what, and even like some messages, like there's one, and I'll ask you, what's something that you've got like that was unexpected, because obviously if you're not following the person, you'll get a request and you can answer the request. And I was talking to my 16-year-old daughter at the time, and I clicked on the thing, and I'll pretty much always usually do that. Sometimes it's spam, most of the time it's not. And it was this person who did just wanted to send me a message, and they were, they had been out of a job for a year and a half, and they were just having a real hard time dealing with life and everything that was going on, the lockdowns, you name it, the whatever, right? It's not in a great place. And the dude was like, you know what? And then I found your page, and you were doing this Boba Fett Star Wars mashup stuff, and it just picked me out of whatever, right? And they find something, right?
Yep.
And he went on to do a little bit more, and he said some really nice stuff, and I wrote him back like a pretty lengthy response, and just thanking him, and I'm connecting with him a little bit on that. And I find that is some of the most, it's the unintentional fantastic outcomes of some of the stuff that we're able to do. What is something that you like that just, so you have that tattoo one, what's something in a message, like where either somebody reached out to you that, and that you were just, and it just hit you, and you were like, no way.
I want to say, I think my wife was with me. I can't remember what show it was, but there was a girl that came to one of my shows, and I'm going to say she was probably in her early to mid 20s. And like before she even got to the table, she was already crying. And I was like, oh no, this is going to be, I have been known to get a little teary-eyed in front of 100 people. I'm not afraid to admit that. I'm not afraid to do it either. So it just, whatever. But she came up and then she started to tell, I think it was Nicole, how a couple of years ago, she was a college student and she was going through some depression and the art. She had bought a piece of my art, and it made her feel better. And she looked at it and it basically hung on her wall the entire time she was in college. It kind of was like, things will get better, and she had never met me at a show and she just bought the art, but she had written me this really long email explaining how she felt. And I wrote her back, and she literally told me the entire email that I had written back to her. And she said it was the fact that he read my message and he wrote back to me. And then throughout the years, I would send him a message and he'd write back. And that was the thing that just made it for her. And then there she was standing in line buying more of the artwork because, and it wasn't like she bought a giant piece. She bought it, it was I think it was in I Love You, the 3 Marcenivos. But that piece struck her, and she had it for the year she was in college, and she was depressed, thinking she was going to drop out. But I had written to her multiple times back and forth throughout the years. And that was the one thing that I saw years later, how she came back to thank me in person because I was at a show in either the town that she was in or she had driven in. It's really weird because some people, you think they live in the town and you're like, oh, where are you from? Oh, I flew in from LA. Or, I'm like, what? Oh, I live in Canada. I'm like, or England. That's the weirdest thing too. But in California, people have flown in from England to come into a show. And then you're like, why didn't you say something? We could have been talking longer. No, it didn't matter. They stood in line, waited like everybody, and you shared a story. But that one right there, the most recent, is the one that sticks out to me. That, she had gone through all these emotional things in school, and the artwork was this one piece that I just, struck her, and the fact that I had replied back to her. Those are the things that are really, really cool. And the tattoos, it blows my mind because I think I have one Marcenivo on me. That's it. And then people have sleeves of stuff. They have they've incorporated, they sort of created their own originals. Which is the part that blows my mind. I'm like, that is a really cool idea. I never thought of that. And it's just, it blows my mind.
Take a picture and then send it to me, and I need to paint that. Thank you. That'll be an original. Speaking of tattoos,
so have I told you guys about the San Francisco story with Chuck? No. I can't remember, because I'm getting old. But I'm not quite 50 yet, Fabio, but says no one ever. But I used to travel with Chuck a lot to shows all over the country for Warner Brothers and other galleries and appearances and whatnot. We were in San Francisco, and it was kind of at the crescendo of his popularity for art shows. And they had a gallery right on Mission Street, and there were probably 500 people waiting in line when he showed up, and it only got more crowded. Mm-hmm. And Warner Brothers had brought in, I think they were literally like ex-CIA, because they were all dressed in black. They all had like sat phones that they were communicating in. There was like 12 of them around the entire premises, and same guys they put out for all of their biggest stars. And so, everybody's in line with a piece of artwork, and Chuck's doing the dedications and whatnot. And throughout the show, there's a guy over in the side, and I'm standing over his shoulder, making sure that people are only asking for the right things and got to keep things moving and whatnot. And this guy was probably a good 6'7", just very strong, bald, biker beard. He's got sort of it just looks like he's scary. But he's just waiting the whole time. And we, and as security was asking if I wanted him removed. And I said, no, he's obviously not hurting anybody. But, he was just standing there. Exactly. Give him the hook. But so after the show, and Chuck stayed it's supposed to be a 2-hour show, and he stayed about 3 hours and met everybody and went through the whole thing. And at the very end, the guy starts to walk up, and literally the security swarms in front. And they're going to take him down because he's obviously there to hurt Chuck, not. But Chuck goes, no, it's okay. Let him come in. And he came up, and he had the most delicate voice for a man that was probably 270 pounds, 6'7", 6'8". And he's like, Mr. Jones, I've been waiting because I'll never have the money to be able to buy one of your works of art, but I just wanted to share with you that Marvin Martian is my favorite character, and I loved watching him with my father when I was young. And I hope it's okay, I had him tattooed on me, and he rolls up his sleeve, and here is this beautiful Chuck Jones in full color Marvin Martian on his shoulder. And without even, Chuck leans forward, and without even, a hitch, he reaches over, grabs a Sharpie pen, and signs the guy's arm. And the guy literally starts to cry. This 6'7", 270-pound man is now starting to tear up, and he can hardly hold it back. And he said, "Oh, thank you, Mr. Jones," and shook his hand delicately and everything. And he goes, "I have to go get the artist to make this permanent." But
And that dude went right to the tattoo parlor. Just it's in black marker. Just give me give me next.
It's a weird. I've been in California at a art center gallery. At the end of the night, there was a father and son. They would show up at 5, and if the show ended at midnight, 1 or 2 in the morning, they were there. And I would ask them, like, what number are you? And he would be like, "No, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay." And last time I was there, year before, he said, "We're number 7." I'm like, "Number 7? We're like at 40 something. Well, you guys should have." No, we enjoy waiting. The father, for the last 5 or 6 years, his left arm, I would draw something on his left arm, a bluebird or Marcenivo or love bombs or anything like that on his arm, and I would sign it. And next year when I saw him, that was inked on his arm with the signature on it. So he was getting all these little tiny originals around his wrist. Oh yeah. And I asked him, and I was like, "It's crazy." He's like, "Listen, we sit here, we watch you, and my son just enjoys listening to your stories." And it's just weird to see like little kids like that now, like he's like 13 or 14 years old. And we've been in for 14 years. There were kids, at the party we were just at, Ben, the little kid that looked like Marty McFly.
Yes.
Remember him?
I wanted that kid's shoes, by the way.
I've known that little boy since he was a baby in a stroller.
No kidding.
Yeah. I've known him that. The first time I ever saw him, he was sleeping at one of my shows in a stroller. He was just a little tiny baby. And now he's this 13-year-old boy, and it's the weirdest thing. He's always asking about Lauren. "Oh, where's Lauren? Where's Lauren?" You saw Lauren too. Yep. So yeah.
Well,
that's awesome.
I think that's a good correlation between you and Chuck. As everything that goes through, like everybody, I'm just a big nerd fan. I'm a collector. I've got you all over the place, and I've got Chuck all over the place, right? And there's something in that connection where you see the stuff, you're able to connect with people, and then you meet the people. And unfortunately I never did get to meet Chuck, but I did get to meet Craig, and that only furthered the tie. So, there's something in that, like, I must wonder if all I've got to get to do is, like, next time we just show up, be like, "Dude, could you just draw on my shoulder real quick?"
I will.
Yeah. If I get that one.
That's it. I got it going on.
Fabio,
Well, you guys are obviously big fans of Chuck's, and one of the things, the Chuck Jones show is usually Friday night. I'm here, you're there, you're over there. And, people are in the gallery, they're coming in after Comic-Con in a little while. But one of the things that I get to do is I get to go searching for things that get to surprise people. And I get surprised as well. So as we're waiting for Bowser to come in, because, he'll take the mic, and then no one will say anything for 2.5 hours, and we'll be good to go.
You don't have to. He just
I know, that's what I mean. So, but if you guys are up for it for just a couple minutes, can I share some of the things that I went and found?
What? You just answered your own question.
Okay, fine. All right. So as I'm going through all these things, and we had the Smithsonian tour, and then the Great Park Irvine, we had the kind of next iteration. Ben, you were out there and saw the exhibition and whatnot. So, and really, you know, you helped curate that show and the evolution of it, and the layout drawings are the things that I find so amazing that Chuck created, and to some extent it because of his exactly. I know the things that you've got, and that his ability to create a layout drawing in a 24th of a second to show exactly what he wanted in a pose at that moment, time the whole thing out, and say, this is the pose, this is the character, each expression was I think his greatest contribution to it, because that was the timing, the character, and everything. So I went searching for some pretty fun stuff. Now, Scott, we might as well start at the beginning, and I'm just going to share I'm going to start with what I found as probably the greatest layout drawing that I've seen. This is Bugs Bunny from What's Opera Doc. This is an original layout drawing of Bugs Bunny in frame number 7, and that, you know, he's coming down and, you know, he's got the pigtails flowing, but look the expression on it. And
Yeah.
you know, if you could zoom in, you could see every line, like you said, means something. So this is 1957 that Chuck created this. So I'd never seen this layout drawing before. Came across it, and look at the red on there as well about the pose. So, you know, it's him kind of working beforehand to see how it's going to work, and then the final. This was then handed over to the animators, and with the exposure sheets, they get to then play and do each of the animation drawings from that kind of thing. So Ben, I figured you'd appreciate this because, you know, you've never seen. I know. When I saw it, I'm like, is it what? Yeah. And scene 63, you know, drawing number 7, and anyway, so that's pretty cool. And then, you know, because I thought that you know, to celebrate what you've done with Gentlemen, Scott, let's go to the next one.
Shut up.
There's Ralph in one of his approaches to, and you look at the
yes, the fingers,
the fingers, the toes, you know, the toes, the details, the way that the eyes sleek back, you know, the way that Chuck
walk like that, by the way, and sneak up. It's not easy. I'm telling you right now, not easy.
So yeah, I mean, to think that he knew exactly what that sequence was going to look like in that moment, to be able to articulate to the animators, you know, in that scene. And, you know, he'd do 400 or 500 of these for an entire film, but then, you know, he timed out the whole thing with the exposure sheets down to a 24th of a second, 5,000 or 6,000 animation drawings. But this is the key moment within that scene so that he could do that. So this is Sheep in the Deep. I think it was 1950. Where's Joel when I need him? But 53 or something like that. But anyway, so, and then one of my favorite poses.
Oh, come on.
Yeah. What do you think? Yeah. So, I mean, I love it and I don't think it certainly didn't make the final cut, but, you know, when you are doing something and you've got the term gritty, you know, that this is the way it is, you know, come back 6.5. And, you know, that you're counting the walking, as he's made notes on everything in the scene, in this moment. And so I love the detail in there.
Joel says 1962.
62?
That's what he said.
Sheep in the Deep? Oh, I was confusing it with something else.
This one.
Oh no, this one was not. This is so if it really is Joel, so 62 is Sheep in the Deep. See, there's my Joel. I love that. I'm thinking of something else earlier in the 50s, but I believe Joel. Joel knows all. He's like the wizard. I love it. Yep. So do I have it? One more, some layout drawings. Oh, this is from Cricket in Times Square, and this is Harry Cat. And what caught me about this was that, you know, I mean, it's obviously physically a cat, but now you anthropomorphize this cat into having this expression and the pose. It's not just the look on his face, it's the body posture. It's the way that the foot is hooked under, the way that the fat is coming up over, and the way he's got it on his hand and whatnot.
Yeah.
So, you know, and this is for television, so he knew exactly where he wanted the shot to happen within there. So that's an original Chuck layout. So we can just cruise through until Bowsy gets in here. But
What I wanted to ask real quick was, does Scott have somebody with a question? Scott, give me a thumbs up.
Scott, I can't see that.
First time caller, long time listeners. I have a question, Craig. Where were these drawings?
Craig, he asked where the drawing. He goes, where have you been hiding these?
Where did these come from?
You seem to be cracking up a little bit there. I can't really explain where those things came from, obviously, Scott. If you knew where those types of things were, you would never leave me alone. Yeah. Scott Scott has never seen these things before. So he's like, what?
People never believe me when I say he just found them. They go, these
true.
things are like 60 years old. And what do you mean he just found them? I go, he's not that clean. And, you know, every once in a while he goes, oh, what do you know?
Well, the What's Opera doc is 65 years old. So, I mean, think about that. You know, it's, yeah.
Oh, where's we got Duck Dodgers, which is
so this is Duck Dodgers and the Return of the 24th and a half century. So, you know, I don't know if you know how that came about, but it was it Spielberg? Now I'm Lucas. I'm getting old. Joel, was it Lucas or Spielberg that asked Chuck to do the sequel?
Joel will know.
Anyway, so Joel will know. But he basically asked that it go out. I think it was the Star Wars film, the second Star Wars film. So that must have been what, 1980?
80.
And I think it was the second one. But anyway, and so these are layout drawings from that sequel. George Lucas with the Empire. See, I was right. There it is. George Lucas, Empire Strikes Back. And he asked Chuck it, and it actually did go out in the theaters in a limited release in the Bay Area with the film because George wanted it to happen. I mean, think about that. So, and it was the time when Gossamer actually got named this cartoon because he had been Rudolph, he'd been the monster, and he needed a name, and Chuck called him Gossamer in this film. So these are just Chuck's actual sketches and layout drawings to communicate the pose and the character and some of the dialogue. And I just love the way that he revisited it.
Can we just settle on a moment on George Lucas calling up Chuck and saying, I need this on what is really considered to be the greatest Star Wars film ever?
Yeah.
Come on.
Well, you know what? The first one didn't do so well, so he needed a little pick-me-up to it. Actually, George and Chuck were very good friends, and actually I think it was 1996, I got to travel with Chuck up to Skywalker Ranch, and we went up and spent the night at Yeah, I know, it's kind of silly. And
hold on. You spent where have these stories been? You spent the night at Skywalker Ranch?
Yeah, so I got to go with Chuck, and they wanted him to come up and tour Skywalker Ranch, and so they've got some bungalows there that people can come and stay, and then I mean, it was pretty cool to go in, and Chuck had one, you know, big suite, and I had another suite, and then the next day we took a tour, and so George was off writing episode 1 at that point, so that kind of tells you when the timing was. But we went around and saw all of the beautiful painting, and went into each of the studios, and got to go over to the sound studio and the vaults where all the stuff is, and where his Acura NSXs were, and Chuck is just, you know, and what's interesting is that, you know, like we went over and again, I'm blanking. Who was the composer for the Star Wars?
No, you do not get to blank on that.
Yeah, I know.
No, you do not. That is, come on. Can I just say, I'm not interrupting, but I'm interrupting. just for this
Yep.
one thing.
Yep.
One of my bucket list items was to see John Williams. There's your composer.
No,
right?
that was okay. So it wasn't John Williams. It was an Academy Award winning guy at Lucas, because it wasn't John Williams. It was another guy that actually ended up doing some things at Pixar in animation. And
Thomas Newman.
It'll come back to me maybe,
Ian
or
Todd.
probably not. But anyway, so we were in the sound studio and recording studio, and he came over, and all the people in sort of the Lucas entourage were like, well, this is, and I almost got his name right there, and multi-Academy Award winning whatever. And Chuck said, I go, oh, nice to meet you. And he goes, and the guy came over and he goes, you're Chuck Jones. And he was literally like, you're Chuck Jones. And no care in the world that he's a multi-Academy Award winning guy. He was just fawning over Chuck and in the moment.
Randy Newman.
No, it wasn't Randy Newman. So I'll get it back.
Danny Elfman.
No, it definitely wasn't, because Denny knew him from before. But anyway, it was good. But really, we went on an entire tour, and then went down and did a speaking engagement tour of Industrial Light and Magic down in San Rafael. And so, yeah, I don't tell you everything, buddy. So literally, we walk in, and all these kids. I mean, it's totally different than obviously Termite Terrace, and where they were all in ties and whatnot. This is all like open areas, dark. They've got huge monitors they're working on. They're working on Casper the Friendly Ghost, and they're showing Chuck stuff and showing him all technology and what they're doing and whatnot. And then he gave about a 3-hour lecture in their theater. They showed a film, and then I think it was probably 250 person theater, and literally they probably had 400 people in that theater. Fire marshal was not invited. So it was because people were sitting literally on the floor and whatnot, and he sat in a wingback chair up there for hours, just telling stories and answering questions and all these different things. So it was one of those trips that were pretty cool. But George wanted him to be able to come up, and Steven Spielberg at ILM to come up and just share some of what he did. And we got to go out to dinner with the guys that made Mask, the Mask with Jim Carrey and that whole animation thing. And so we went out to dinner with those guys, and they were like total Tex Avery, tribute. And they showed us actually some, when we were at ILM, or maybe it was at Lucas, some stuff, how they remastered the episode 4?
Yeah.
And so they cut the scene with Jabba the Hutt in episode 4, right? You found that out later.
Yeah.
Originally, hey, Scott, will you mute that for a second? Thank you. So they actually had a live action person playing Jabba the Hutt. They had a human.
Yes.
And so, but they showed, and this is what, 1995 or 6, so the technology was still pretty primitive. And so they were trying to figure out doing layering so that they could put this new character of Jabba in front of this person. But they said they hadn't figured out yet because the human kept jumping out from behind this front layer, and they hadn't figured out how you had to get rid of that and in the background. But eventually, and they had Jabba eating incessantly in the scenes because here he needed to be thinner when he was in this earlier scene, and then later he had to be really fat. So they just had him eating as a test pilot of this thing. So I know it was, but we got to hang out with those guys and see those early things. And that's the type of thing that Chuck was always and often, but he was never paid to do this. It was just him wanting to give back and give forward and share with these guys anything they wanted to know. So yes, George did ask him because he, obviously was a huge fan of Chuck's, and everybody knows that Marvin Martian inspired Darth Vader's helmet. So, you steal it from somewhere.
Okay.
What?
I'm just going to put this out there as there's several comments. Mr. Lawrence, I see yours too on here, as well as some others. I am digesting everything that you're saying, and not quite sure what to do with myself.
Well, I tell you what would be a good thing to do then? Since we're both speechless at this point, why don't we go to someone who knows how to speak quite well? How does that sound? Then we'll get back to your speechlessness a little later. So look who I got. I know. Hey, you know what? I see someone that I know quite well, respect quite well.
Unmute.
No, you're live.
Am I live? Am I good to go?
You are
Classic
good to
Filipino
go.
fashion. 30 minutes late. And I see you compensated for my height, by the way, with the stacking the microphone on the books.
I feel so short.
Well, at least I didn't put the books on the chair.
That's true. That's true. Like in my car.
Yeah.
You know, when I drive. It's good to be back here in San Diego at the Sparks Gallery this time. But it's the Chuck Jones Gallery. It's so nice to be here. Half of my son's college fund is here. But I get to hang it all on my walls at home.
Oh,
I think I might be the only person that can say he's the proud owner of Chuck Jones animation cells from a movie called Stay Tuned, starring John Ritter and Pam Dauber. That scene where they get zapped into the Chuck Jones mouse world, and I have that hanging in my kitchen.
Oh.
It's one of my most prized possessions, as well as animation cells from Mrs. Doubtfire that Chuck Jones worked on as well, that I bought from you guys.
Dude.
So, and I think I own some stuff from Gremlins too. So yes, my entire son's college fund is here.
But that's okay, Doc. I'm going to teach him how to do this voice, and he's going to be fine.
Well, it seems to have worked out for you, and I'm glad you named some awesome films there. I mean, Chuck, and that was the early '90s that they asked him to come back and do the Stay Tuned film with John Ritter and Pam Dauber, and they were obviously huge fans of Chuck, and so I think he enjoyed figuring out what the characters were going to do in that and what the mice did. But still, my favorite character in that entire segment, RoboCat.
Yeah.
So it was, that mechanical. Now
it had all the gadgets and everything. Yeah, the cell that I have is a profile of RoboCat with all the missiles and guns aimed at the two mice.
Yeah,
it's, again, still some of the best drawings that I've ever seen.
Now, so we get everybody who's on here introduced. Eric. By the way, everybody who's out there outside of Comic-Con, because when he came in, there was a huge round of applause, and everybody bowed down to the voice of Bugs Bunny and all the other great Looney Tunes characters that he portrays these days. But I want to make sure. I'm not sure that you have actually, Ben, obviously, who's hanging out here, and you can put Ben on with Eric. But also, we've got.
What's up, Ben? How's it going?
I was hoping to see you here in person.
And well, he is here in person. He's just on the other side of the country. So we all thought about.
And of course, I can't forget Mr. Fabio. How are you, Doc?
There. So the four of us just get to hang out for a little while, and everybody else who's out there in the land of Comic-Con and in around the country. But I think we've almost
things are starting to get packed and busy in here too. You got to see the crowd is thickening up.
Thickening. That's quite the viscosity that's happening in that region.
It's thickening up, not thickening, but thickening in viscosity.
So
by the way, I now own this microphone with all the saliva that's on it.
Well, that's okay.
You're not gonna you can't bring this back to Best Buy. I'm telling you, they're not gonna take it.
Okay, they have receipts. Yeah.
No, it's good. It's good. Mine are all digital receipts, so they can't ever take a look and see what's on it. It's all good. So you missed. I don't know if you missed a couple of layout drawings that we did, because I know that you're a big fan of layout drawings and the characters, and you're a collector yourself. But Hey, Scott, let's go back to What's Opera Doc because, I'm not sure you saw that one, but I went
love to take a peek.
I went foraging for things that nobody had ever seen before. And here's an original layout drawing from What's Opera Doc 1957, known as the greatest cartoon ever created, as established by 1,000 animation professionals. It was the first film that was inducted in the National Film Registry in 1992. First animated film that was inducted, and probably the greatest layout drawing that I've ever seen from the cartoon, because it's the perfect pose of Bugs Bunny right in that moment, So I pulled this out wanting to share it with Ben and you, and then as a plus, I got Fabio to be able to drool a little bit. We didn't invite them in person because I didn't want him getting the artwork wet. So
I would have totally. It would have been a very bad deal for me. But what I wanted to say was, as we're getting going, I think, like Fabio, I know he's got his 50th anniversary for his in-laws tomorrow. So I'm not, and we're 3 hours ahead of you.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
think, do you have to sign off, or are you?
Well, I have to say, for one, is I am not in my home. Like I said it before, I'm in a friend's home.
Yeah.
It is almost 10:15. So,
Ooh.
yeah, and I have like a half-hour drive back to my establishment. But it was a pleasure meeting you guys. Thank you once again for everything. Love the story. By chance, are any of those sketches going to be for sale? Or are you just going to put them back in a hole you just found in?
No.
That would be something you have to ask Scott about. Literally,
Okay,
that would be
I'll
something
reach
you have to
out
ask
because
Scott about.
there's
Okay.
a couple of that just blew my mind. I appreciate it.
Now,
Thank
before
you,
you
guys.
leave, Fabio,
Yes.
was there one voice that you wanted to hear from Eric before you started going back to your establishment in Maine?
Henry Hawk.
Oh, Henry Hawk?
Yes.
I'm a root tootin' lasso looping popgun shooting chicken hawk.
I'll say, take it easy, son. Now, son, see that house that says DOG over there? That spells chicken. Go get him, boy.
Yeah, that big chicken. That loudmouth schnook sent me over to try to cook you.
Henry Chicken Hawk. I relate to him so much because
That was awesome.
we're like we have the same silhouette, and we almost look the same. But yeah, I mean, you had What's Opera Doc? Yeah.
You're gonna kill me with your spear and magic helmet.
Magic helmet.
Magic helmet.
Yeah, you got to say that, right? You got to sing these songs. Oh, Brunhilde, you're so lovely.
Yes, I know it. I can't help it.
Yeah, I've been practicing, guys. This is what you do when you sit in Los Angeles traffic. You kinda,
Oh my God.
oh look, there are people. There were people here. Now they're leaving. So
All right, Fabio. Hey,
Thank you guys very
safe
much. That
travels.
was awesome.
Thank you for being here.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
next
All
time
right.
we'll do it, but with legs. Yeah, we'll be in person. Yeah,
I actually have pants on. Go figure.
yeah, yeah. Don't stand up yet. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I got shorts.
Oh my God.
Uma Thurman shirt. Oh, it's
Oh
fantastic.
yeah.
There it is.
All right, guys.
Go.
Thank
All
you.
right.
We'll
See
see
ya.
ya.
Bye.
Good night, buddy.